think you feel it with the lack of heat, or lots of heat. Sorry, not lack of heat. So here's what we're going to have to do, okay? We're going to make this as fair and balanced as we possibly can in the moment. Everyone who's standing, we're going to ask you to step outside. You're either going to have to go downstairs or make your way around the balcony. We will be circling back. If you're here for the human rights conversation, we should be circling back around 6:15-ish, 6:30, but we'll make sure someone tells you that conversation is coming up. And then if we still do not have seats available in here, we're going to make sure if you have the opportunity to make public comment, that we'll make sure that you hear that and come in and make your public comment, okay? So, looks like we're going to have to get a bigger commission chamber for the next conversation. Thank you all for your understanding. I really appreciate it, and we'll get started in just a second. We will leave these doors open so you can hear, hopefully, while you're out there. Thank you all. These meetings are shown on YouTube Live, so if you want to get your phones out there too, you can see this on YouTube Live, so you won't miss anything. We need to make sure we keep these entrances open, so don't stand in front of them. Thank you, guys.
Kentucky Chamber.
Oh, okay.
All right. Next time we have a meeting this. Are we ready, commissioners?
I'm ready.
Call to action?
Action.
All right.
Sound the alarm.
Here we go. Say it. This meeting to order on January 9th, 2018. And really quick before we get started, I do want to make sure that we understand that this evening we have a lot of people here. We all know that. But secondly, we are here to conduct city business also. So you will see, if you had a chance to pick up the agenda, we have a lot of items on our agenda tonight. So it's very important to us, and I think to our city and our staff, that we conduct business in a thorough manner before we get to the conversation I think most of you guys are here to have. So if you start to get antsy and you're too hot or whatever that may be, I know you're going to be afraid to lose your seat, but go ahead and step outside for us, okay, so you don't disrupt that. We have a lot of business to do and some guests this morning, actually, this afternoon that we get to chat with. So thank you all for being here. With that said, I'm going to ask the city clerk to call roll for us.
Commissioner Abraham?
Present.
Commissioner Holland?
Here.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Present.
Mayor Harless?
Here. Commissioner Rhodes, would you lead us in the invocation, please? Not Rhodes, Holland.
I was like, why are you looking at me? My name is not Rhodes. All right.
Please stand with us.
Dear Lord, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Give us a spirit of service. Help us see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons with the reverence they deserve. We seek a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, and the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement. Amen.
Thank you very much. If you'll stay standing, we'll say the pledge together. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. You may be seated. City Manager, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, the removal of item D6 from municipal orders.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have a special guest here tonight who you might have heard about before. Shi'Ann Jones is here with us. She was recently on The Voice, and she has made her Paducah famous for us. So first of all, we're thankful for that. Shi'Ann, would you like to come up to the microphone with your friends? And this one right here. Yeah, we're going to try not to embarrass you. But we... Oh, great. Hello. Okay.
He's
well,
welcome to embarrass her. That's his
right.
job.
So, first of all, we're so honored to have you here tonight, and I want to congratulate you for the great work that you did, and seriously, putting Paducah on the map once again for us. But I thought maybe it would be interesting if you would share a little bit about your experience with us. It's not very often that we get a local Paducahn that has that kind of experience.
It was amazing working with Jennifer and just singing on the stage.
Oh, push the mic in front.
Push the mic. Yeah.
It was amazing just working with Jennifer and just singing on the stage. It was just something that I've been wanting to do since I was 3 years old, and just knowing that I have that opportunity is just a blessing because not everybody has this opportunity. And what we did usually was just rehearse and just have fun a little bit, but just stay on the ball and just practice and everything. And I'll usually have my father with me, and he'll help me with the music.
That's great.
Do you have any insights to share or special experiences that you had along the way?
Yes, ma'am. It was truly a blessing. You know, I get a lot of questions asking, you know, how does it feel to help be a father? How proud am I? And words could never explain. You know, it was just a joy that was overwhelming. We had a chance to meet Blake Shelton. We had a chance to meet Adam Levine and Jennifer and Miley and Gwen Stefani. I had a chance to meet Method Man, and it was a whole lot of people that we was able to experience and be. I don't know if anyone ever been to California before, especially around Universal Studios. We was able to see Mini Minds or something, the movie. We seen all that, seeing how they make the movies. Despicable Me.
I thought we were talking about opinions.
And we was riding around on carts, and we didn't have to. I mean, we had van rides. I mean, we was escorted everywhere. We had security. I mean, it was just the journey was. It just didn't start in California. It started in Nashville. I actually started in Snapchat. We seen it. Me and my wife was on our anniversary last year, 8th of August, and I asked my daughter. I said, "Do you want to try out for Snapchat?" And she was like, "Well, we ain't got nothing else to do. Let's see where it goes." So she sung the song "Who's Loving You" by the Jackson 5, and we sent it in, and we wasn't planning on doing anything with it. And before we know, we got a call back from Alicia Keys' spokesperson, and she was like, "Hey, Alicia, won't Shi'Ann on our team?" So before we know it, they was like, "Go to Nashville. Y'all got a private audition." So we went down there, and the guy that was the producer that was, I don't know if I'm talking too long, but anyway, the producer, he was like, "If I wasn't sitting here listening to you sing, I couldn't believe that you was just only 15."
Wow.
And so before that, they sent us out to California. Before you know it, she tried out for the Blinds. She passed. Jennifer Hudson hit on the first note. As soon as she started singing,
I saw that.
Boom. And Blake Shelton turned around. Matter of fact, Jennifer was telling the other coaches not to pick her. she was threatening them. And so, and before you know it, Blake pushed his button, and she had a choice between Jennifer and Blake. So she chose Jennifer, and
choice.
the ride
That
was
was right.
just, it was beautiful. And she was the youngest contestant, and we are proud of Paducah. Paducah's my hometown, and I went to Paducah Tillman. I know Abe, number 35.
Come on now. Watch out.
We go way back. I mean, but the thing is that, as a father, you're supposed to support your children. And that's what this is about. Y'all, I don't know what this vote is about here, but it's really bleeding down into the kids. And I'm going to support my daughter 100%, regardless if she made the top 10 or the top 15 or the top 20, whatever. But she made the top 10 out of 50,000 people.
We are so proud of you,
Come on now.
Shi'Ann.
50,000. Paducah. And she did put Paducah on the map, and I watched her pain when she got cut. It hurt. It hurt. But the thing about it, she's growing from it. And we want to thank you guys for the WPSD for following her, Paducah Sun, and the people of Paducah. We love y'all. And
So what's the next step in the singing career?
I'm working on an album in like spring, but from now on, and then, I'm gonna be just working on my inner self.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Hey, thank you all so much. Congratulations. Now, I heard that there might be a picture that needs to be made. Is that true? Are you wanting a picture? All right, how about you come on up here, and we'll all get together up here. Is she gonna take it from way back there?
You can tell us what the judges
You
are
wanna come
really
on up?
like. We won't
Okay.
tell anybody.
Here, why don't we just stand in the middle of the... Put these waters on the grill.
Are we all getting the picture?
Yeah, let's all get the picture. Okay.
There, you stay by the door.
Are we in here? Where's Sarah? Okay. Can you get us all? Oh, thank you. Congratulations. Oh, yeah, just us? Yeah, sure. Okay. Absolutely. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Let us know when your album is out. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to move one item up.
Yes.
And someone has a motion to suspend. You do. Okay, Commissioner Holland.
I move that the rules for conducting city commission meetings be suspended insofar as they are in conflict with the printed agenda for this meeting. Otherwise, the rules are to remain in full force and effect.
Great. And this is all because we
Second.
are, sorry about that, second. We are about to sign the contract with our union city workers that are here today to do that with us. So we're going to do that so that they can go home and eat dinner, I'm assuming. So we need to call roll on that, please.
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Holland,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson. Aye. Mayor Harless.
Oh, aye. You have it. Okay, great. I'll come over there.
Will we go straight to the meeting?
No, we moved it up.
We got the presidential comment.
Tammy,
Yes, ma'am.
to read the motion?
Excuse me?
Am I supposed to read the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
When she calls for it, we need to adopt that.
Oh, good.
I have
Don't
it.
leave. Don't leave. I thought it was a ceremonial signing.
I have it. Do you
David,
want me
are
to read it?
those the presidential pins?
Sorry, Mayor.
Okay, don't leave the room until we adopt this to make sure that that's correct, okay? Please, Commissioner Wilson.
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Authorizing the Mayor to Execute a Contract Between the City of Paducah and American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, Local 1586." This ordinance is summarized as follows, that the mayor is hereby authorized to execute a contract between the City of Paducah and American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, Local 1586, which will expire June 30th, 2021.
Second?
Excellent. Any comments or questions, concerns?
I would
Go
just
ahead,
like to
please. Yeah.
congratulate everyone on getting this to such a solution and to resolution at the very timely manner. So thank you. I know it's not easy. We appreciate you all very much, and thank you. I've been through a lot of these, and congratulations.
Me too, unfortunately. Mayor Harless, commissioners, one and all, City Manager Peterson, I'd like to just state, I'm Dave Shockley. I'm the president of Local 1586, and I'd like to state at this time that we truly appreciate the way that it was handled this time. The city manager came in, we sat down, we had just a one-on-one talk. We had a few things we wanted. He had something we needed to get done. We were in agreement. We made some compromises. We serve the city because we want to. This is a job, but it's more than a job. We take home what it takes to support our families, but we do it because we want this city to come out ahead. That's why we have the #1 Parks Department in the state. We have the #1 Street Cleaning Department in the state. We go out and we try to make this a wonderful city for everybody. Now all we need is for y'all to get some jobs so we can have more people. But we do appreciate it. And Jeff Peterson is the reason this happened.
Thank you, and thank you,
David.
Jeff, for that work that you did. Appreciate you guys. We have to call roll. Thank you so much. Thank you again. Thank you again.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome, sir. All right, Brian.
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Holland,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening. Absolutely. You have something there?
Excuse me? Did you need this? Yes. Yes, I do.
All right.
You know how to get me a copy.
Do we have a motion to not suspend business? Are we fine?
Yes, we've already made the motion.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
All right, moving ahead, and if just so everyone's aware of what we just did, on your agenda, under ordinances, adoption, letter A, that's the thing that we just moved up on the agenda, so that those amazing guys could go home after a long day of work. So just so you know, that's what we just did, and we are very thankful for all the people who put on the hard work in our city. So next up, in order of business, we actually have some presentations from some guests tonight. We have, if you've been following along, been looking for a search firm to seek out a city manager to fill the role that Jeff will be leaving. And so we have 3 firms here tonight, and we're going to ask each of those firms to come up and give us a presentation of what they're proposing they can do for us. And with that, our Human Resources Director is going to take over, I'm pretty sure, this process. So, and thank you so much, Martin, for the work you've put in.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner, City Manager. First up, as far as his presentation this evening, is going to be Lee, and hopefully I don't pronounce your name too bad, Lee, Szymborski from GovHR USA. And he's going to give you a presentation, and he also is going to be able to answer any questions that you might have as far as his search firm. Lee, I'll give you that opportunity.
Thank you, Martin. I appreciate the time this evening and to talk to you about our recruitment services for the city as you seek your next city manager. I know you've got a packed agenda here, so I'll be mindful of the time here. But what I want to do is tell you about our firm, a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Lee Szymborski, and our firm is GovHR USA. I also want to highlight the process. I know you've got copies of our proposal. I'm just going to hit the tips of the waves here. Then I want to talk to you about why GovHR, why hire our firm, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So GovHR USA is a firm that does executive recruiting, management consulting, and interim placement services, and we work exclusively for the public sector. So our clients are cities, counties, also nonprofit agencies. We've been at this in our current iteration since 2009, but actually the roots of our company goes back to 1972, in which It was founded by a former city manager, Paul Rayom, who began this effort, and so the company that we have today is the successor to that. Our firm is located in Northbrook, Illinois. It's a women-owned firm. We have done work in about half the United States, and every consultant, including myself, has at some point or another worked for local government. So this is kind of reminiscent of when I was a city administrator in a community in Wisconsin, actually a community of the same size as Paducah. And I remember a room filled like this, but it was on a zoning issue or so. And I've got over 33 years of experience working for local government. And since 2014, I've been with GovHR working full-time and have handled close to 50 recruitments. I'll be the recruiter assigned to this engagement. Our process includes, and I'll walk you through, step you through, the highlights of our process, just to give you a feel for what you can expect from us. So, if we were to be fortunate enough to get the engagement, we come in, and the first what we do is get an understanding, a deeper understanding of the community, the organization, and the position, the city manager position. And so we'll talk to all of the commissioners, we'll talk to staff, and if there's any outside stakeholders that you would like us to engage, say, for example, your Visitors Bureau, Chamber of Commerce, or others, we'll do that as well, any stakeholders that you'd like us to talk to develop a recruitment profile, and that's important for two reasons. One is that recruitment profile articulates, what the city commission and the organization seeks from its next city manager, and we'll use that as a measure to assess the candidate's fit for the job, for the organization, and for the community. And then we also use that recruitment profile as a tool, something that will highlight the city, the organization, what candidates can expect, particularly in terms of the opportunities and the challenges here in Paducah. The next step is to do outreach for the position, and that includes such things as advertising, upward of 15 to 18 different sources. We also use social media extensively, Facebook, LinkedIn. We have available to us a database that allows us to customize and send out direct emails to potential candidates. And then, part of recruiting is just the old-fashioned tapping on people's shoulders, calling them up, and through the networking that we've done, alerting them to the opportunity here in Paducah. So it is both the high-tech and also low-tech touch that is included with that. Once you can expect, once applicants start coming in, you can expect our screening process to include individually assessing each resume that comes in. We don't put it through a database. I will take a look at every resume that goes through, because we're going to be looking at some of the accomplishments that these candidates claim that they have that would fit what you're looking for here. My next thing to do is to, and I'll give you an example here. If we have, say, for instance, say 50 to 60 applicants for the Paducah position, I'll probably identify, somewhere in the range of upward of 20 or so whose credentials closely match what you're looking for. Then I'll do a Skype interview, and I'll talk to folks for a good hour or so to really discern if they can match what they've said on their resume with specific examples that we'll talk about in that Skype interview. We also do a social media and reference search ahead of time so that you have an idea of what kind of media reports, have been done on all of these candidates. We do it ahead of time so that we know what's to expect, because we would expect any of you or any members of the community to do something similar, and we don't want you to be surprised. That's the front end of the due diligence. In addition to that, as you get closer to making an offer to somebody, we'll also make sure that on the back end of the due diligence is that then we do the deeper dive of background investigation on education, financial, criminal, and all of that, so that you have as good of an idea of this candidate. We'll I will present a portfolio of candidates for you. So we would meet again, and we'll review together the portfolio of candidates that we recommend, and the City Commission would choose who you would like to interview. And so the interview process includes, our doing all the coordination, setting everything up. We develop and write all the interview questions, the evaluation instruments, and we'll guide you through this entire process here. The process typically takes about 12 weeks. So, for example, if you give our company the green light, say by February 1st or so, you could expect that by around May 1st, that you would make an offer to a candidate and expect to have that candidate sit in that chair, say come early June or early July, depending on how long of a notice that person would need to give their current employer. So why GovHR? We've got extensive experience in local government and nonprofit recruiting. We include, as I mentioned before, we have all worked in the field and remain current and active in city management circles. Thus our network is wide, and we're well known among our colleagues. With that background too, we are able to, and for all of us like myself who have been responsible to and have worked with elected officials, we believe that gives us additional insight as to what's important to you. So our due diligence on our candidates is comprehensive. As I mentioned, social media, background search, we do references. At the time that I would present a portfolio of candidates, we'll have talked to at least a couple of references, and so I can not only tell you about the conversation that I've had with folks, but I can tell you what other people have said about them as well. Our firm is also committed to bring you a diverse pool of candidates. We're active in networking and public administration associates dedicated to the advancement of women and minorities in the city management profession, and we're your partner through the process. So you can expect from us constant communication. If the process takes a little bit of extra time, we're going to stay with you until you find a city manager that you are satisfied with, and we will be with you and communicate with you throughout the process. The other part too is I want you to know that we, and I think if you'd ask any candidate that we have dealt with that has not been successful, that they would tell you, though, that they were treated very well by GovHR. So we treat all the candidates with respect because we feel we're your representative, that we're representing your city, and we want them to, to go away feeling like they were respected through the process. We're committed to your satisfaction on the process, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you so much. I cannot hold on one second. I think we're either going to have to ask everyone to move downstairs or shut the doors. I'll let Chief Barnhill, do you mind deciding what's the best option for that? I think so. Yeah. We just can't hear very well, or focus for that matter. So, You have a huge crowd behind your head.
Sure.
So I actually am going to ask each commissioner individually if they want to have any questions. I'm going to start with Commissioner Abraham. Do you have any questions for this gentleman?
Well, not so much questions. We have you talked about just the basics of the recruiting process and what we're looking for. City manager form of government is defined in KRS. So the job itself is dictated through that body. Mm-hmm. So then I guess it comes down to personalities. It comes down to personalities, because the job is already laid out. This is your job description. So I don't know, when you said that, I'm like, it's not like we're looking for someone that's not a city manager, that's not familiar with that job description. So it comes down to those intangibles, how you communicate with the elected body, how your management style, all of those things. So I guess those are the things that you will cipher through, and I guess depending on the directive we give you, then you're going to go out and look for that. So I just,
Sure.
A lot of the work, professional work on that level of what a city manager does, it's already solidified. So that really wasn't a question. It was just a comment on.
Can I comment on
Sure.
that? Sure. I understand exactly what you're saying is that for most organizations, either by charter or by statute or by ordinance, the city manager's role is defined. But it's also one that you all define. Say if you have a strategic plan, or say if you've got annual goals or biennial goals that you want your city manager to tackle, then that also adds to that layer of just the technical skills. Yeah, it's the technical skills that will get somebody through the door, mm-hmm. or that will get my attention, but it's also the emphasis of where those skills have mostly been honed. So for example, I've had any number of communities that say, well, what we're looking for is somebody that has had a lot of experience in economic development. Okay. And so, that's what, we'll begin to look for. Paducah may have particular challenges that a certain level of interpersonal skills are going to address best. But I hear exactly what you're saying. It's the technical skills that get you through the door. It's those soft skills, if you will, that really help make that connection and that fit.
And I hear what you're saying. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Holland, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was wondering how many, what's the percentage of cities you've worked with in which that first round that comes at 12 weeks, they didn't find a candidate and have to go back for another round? How often you sort of exceed that time and have to go through several rounds?
Very rarely, and I would say it's been under 5% or so. A lot of it is making sure that we understand up front what could be some of the potential hurdles that we'll need to address. Whether it's salary, whether it's location, any number of those things, and we'll talk about that up front so as to minimize the effect that it will have on the candidate pool.
Awesome, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Commissioner Rhodes, any questions?
Real quick, is there sort of a money back guarantee? In other words, if the first person fails for some reason or other, what do you do? Because what do you do?
Yeah,
he's nodding his head. Yes.
Yeah, first I take that person out the back and
beat him to the club.
No, in the unlikely event that happens, we offer a 2-year guarantee.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Mr. Wilson.
I know you have in here 90 days would be the expected time frame.
Right.
But you also have in here, we can work with you on a shorter process, should you so desire. Is your firm at a place where you could accelerate that time frame?
How accelerated?
You shouldn't ask her that question.
Yeah.
I'm pretty fast-paced.
Yeah.
Within reason, 60-day, 45, 60-day.
Yeah, we can accelerate the pace, but there's some just be aware of issues. Accelerated pace, can also affect the quality of the due diligence that we do. So we want to make sure that we have a very keen understanding of people's backgrounds, and so because we do those couple of references up front, it requires some coordination there. So there's that. We typically also suggest a 5-week advertising. I'd like to understand Paducah, the city, and the organization a little bit better as to suggest whether or not, say, a shorter time frame would be appropriate. But I will tell you this, it's a candidate's market right now. So the longer you can advertise, the better off that you'll be. There are a lot of cities looking for city managers because there are a number of retirements happening right now.
Good to know.
Great. Thank you very much. I don't think I have any questions. I think you covered it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd love to have your business.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. I'll let Martin come up and introduce our next guest. See, this is interesting stuff, isn't it? Is anyone asleep? Yeah.
Next up, we have Art Davis from Springstead. He's here to, he has actually a PowerPoint that he wants to show you as well and explain his search firm.
Great.
Art.
Mayor and members of the City Commission, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. An unexpected benefit of having a large audience here. I'd like to introduce myself, Art Davis. I'm former city manager, worked for the cities of Dallas and was city manager in Lee Summit for about 6 years, and then started my own executive recruitment firm and did some consulting, but primarily executive recruitment for about 10 years. And I've been with Springstead Waters for about 2.5 years now. Springstead Waters is one of the largest public sector local government recruitment firms in the country. And if you look to page 3, make sure haven't used this yet. There we go. Have been in business for 30 years. We've done recruitments in I think over 38 states now. Nearly 500 successful recruitments since 2010. And we have a number of former local government professionals that are on our staff. And the project team, which you'll find on page 5, of course myself, I would be the project team leader. Chuck Rohr's a former police chief in several cities. He's been doing recruitments for about 20 years. Sharon Klump is a former city administrator and city manager in several locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Patty Hemenover is a former school superintendent in several locations. And Raleigh Waters, the namesake of the firm, at the bottom is the executive vice president, and he's based in Chicago. He is really kind of a behavioral strengths and testing expert, and that's something that we think we bring to the table that is very effective in making sure that you've got the right fit, both skills-wise and personality-wise, with with city manager candidates and finalists that you ultimately interview. If you move to page 8, we're committing to do whatever it takes to get the job done right. And we really take pride in having a transparent and consistent recruitment process. We want to make the most efficient use of your time possible and minimize the staff disruption when we're working to get the process started. And we also think that we do an extensive job of vetting candidates as a part of this process, so that you're seeing top quality candidates through the end of the process. A sampling of our recruitment clients on page 9. We've worked in Florida, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, really Colorado, Texas, throughout the country. And this is just a small sampling. In the proposal, and I'm trying to be as abbreviated as possible, but in the proposal we've got a list of probably 70 or 80 different city manager recruitments we've done in the last 4 or 5 years. So feel free to take a look at that. Page 10. And I don't want to cover the exact same thing Lee did, but we essentially do a lot of the same processes. And we help you. We come in and help you not only create a profile, but a recruitment brochure, and do the put your best foot forward as a community, and meeting with you and members of the community, the staff, whoever you would like us to meet with, and begin to, through interviews, identify some of the key characteristics and traits and issues and experience that you want to be that you want your candidates to have going into the various rounds of interviews. We're going to help you develop a qualified candidate pool that we have thoroughly vetted with additional candidate questionnaires to provide more detailed information, not just a resume, but actually some in-depth analysis on their management philosophy and their background, and make sure that you have a full and complete understanding of their background, exact dates of employment, so that we can highlight any potential red flags through the vetting process. If there's been candidates that have hopped jobs quite frequently, we're going to let you know about that. And that's part of our obligation, is to really find out everything we can about the candidates. So we'll be screening these candidates. We also have it's called the HireView video process we use. It's a proprietary video interview that the top 10 to 12 or to 15 qualified candidates that we're able to identify, we will then send them a video questionnaire that they get to respond to on video, so that and they're not trick questions. They're questions that are pertinent to the job responsibility, but they get one shot. And you get to see a little bit of their confidence in their knowledge of the area of expertise. You get to see how they respond with spontaneity, which is, you want someone that can respond with clarity of thought when an issue comes up, whether it's before the city commission or in front of the media or working with labor groups. You've got to have somebody that has the ability to respond. It indicates some leadership presence, and if they've got the presence that you're looking for. So in essence, it's just a little additional picture of the entire package for each candidate of those top, what we call semifinalists, 10, 12, 15 semifinalists, so that when it comes time for you all to narrow it down to a group of 3, 4, or 5 for an interview, you've got the best picture possible and the most information you can have in being able to do that. And of course, we do interviews, phone interviews with them, and we also do a scan, kind of an internet, like a Lexus for the legal institutions and universities, that we do a nexus search, which scrubs the internet, their social media, and as well as anything that's been that's happened with the media in their prior places of employment, and we put together a kind of a full picture for you to consider. We help you prepare for the interviews and help. We ask that you have a staff person that helps coordinate it. I assume it would be an HR director or someone like that we would work to help coordinate the process, but we would work based on our knowledge and expertise of what processes work the best, and ultimately, though, it's your decision in how who you want to involve in the selection process, whether it's just you, whether it's a staff panel or some kind of assessment panel to help you in evaluating candidates. And we help you set all of that up and get those candidates here for an interview process with you. And we help prepare interview questions, and they're just draft because it's your process and it's your decision to make. But we try to be that turnkey expert consultant that helps you make those decisions along the way. So throughout the process, and I'm not going to go through all the detail, but on page 11, we've got kind of the key deliverables of the engagement. I talked a little bit about the ad and an ad table we put together where we would market the advertisement. But we also go out and target people within the region, and thinking that it's important. We do advertise nationally, but it's important to make sure you've got candidates that are knowledgeable about the region and the nuances of the region. And so we think that's important to kind of focus in that area. I also have found it helpful to identify leaders in the profession, and I actually seek out, for example, professional committees, ICMA or Kentucky City Manager Association, Illinois City Manager Association, others. And I go to the websites and identify who's active in the professional associations, the ethics associations, and target individuals. They may not be interested, but they may know somebody that is, and that's kind of some of those folks that I target to pursue. Getting the brochure out, getting the information out about the great opportunity. So we can help with, we help put together books on backgrounds for both the semifinalist review and the interviews. We also do a strengths inventory, and a little bit, it's similar to a personality test, but it's more based on SDI, if you are aware of the personality and strengths assessment testing. We do a test that for those finalists that are coming to the interview, so that we've got test results for you to review that indicates if you all want somebody that's very detail-oriented. This will indicate if somebody is not detail-oriented, and if they're not, it's going to show. We call it a gap analysis. We'll show that there's a little bit of a gap there. We need to focus some of the interview questions on that issue. We can assist with onboarding and negotiating an employment agreement, and really whatever you need assistance and advice on. And we know you have your own city attorney and all of that. We just try to be a resource and be supportive and assisting of you in the process. I took the liberty on page 12 of putting together a recruitment process timeline. And this is simply reflective of starting in early February. Obviously, it's contingent upon having an agreement in place and you all making decisions and other things coming into line schedule-wise with availability for you all and for us. But we would target early February to kick off, and you can see, I'm not going to go through all the details, you can see how it progresses through the end of April. And obviously contingent upon your availability to conduct the interviews, because it's important to have everyone involved in the process for a hire of this importance. So with that, I would open it up to questions and answer anything you.
Thank you.
Any
Thank
questions
you,
you might
Art,
have?
so much for this. This
Sure.
is very helpful. So what we did before is we're actually going to go through our commissioners and see if anyone has any specific questions for you. So I'm going to start.
I don't have
Not
any.
this time. Commissioner Holland?
I have the same question. How often do you have to go back for another round of finalists and exceed the timeline?
Well, I mean, it happens. And sometimes it's because a governing body, city commission, does not find a candidate that fits their exact description of what they're looking for. Sometimes candidates withdraw from the process for either personal or professional reasons. Sometimes when you get to the negotiation stage, they fall apart, and it's difficult after a longer period of time to go back and pursue a number 2 or number 3 candidate. So, you know, we do, and it's mentioned in both our proposal and in our and in the material I've given you today, we've got a triple guarantee that we're going to stick with you through the process because it's a not to exceed fee, both expenses and professional fee. We're going to stick with you, and if it requires going out for a second round, you know, we can go for the kind of the full bore advertisement, full process, or we can take a more measured, strategic approach and just pursue certain high-quality candidates or have certain target areas where we can narrow it down more quickly based on understanding and knowing both from our perspective and your perspective what you're looking for. And so, you know, sometimes we've gone out a couple of times. I had one client that we went out 4 times for a department director position, but you have to remember that sometimes compensation and salary play a part, and if you're in a very remote location, 6 hours from any major metropolitan area in the North Tundra, and you're wanting to bring in a very specialized professional, and you've got very limited salary, and you're conducting interviews in the middle of winter with 10-foot snowstorm, it's very difficult to get those people to commit to move and relocate. So there's a lot of issues that play, but we guarantee the placement for up to 2 years. That's the second part of our guarantee. So regardless of what happens, if the candidate walks away, if you all decide they're not what you had expected and you decide to terminate the arrangement, we are going to come in and replace that at no additional charge for up to 2 years, 24 months. And then the third guarantee is we don't come in and, after placing someone, recruit that person for some other location, whether it's, you know, 3 years or 10 years down the line. It doesn't mean we don't have conversations with them at conferences and things like that, but we do not pursue them, and we make that commitment as a commitment on our based on our integrity, and we're all members of the International City Management Association, and we all abide by the same code of ethics, and I'm still a member as well. So that's the commitment we make.
Thank you. Commissioner Rhodes, you good? Wilson? I do have a question about the recruitment process.
Sure.
Just curious about kind of your thoughts around more of the headhunting approach, so not just the put an advertisement out and wait for everybody to come, but how specific and strategic are you getting around actually going and looking for candidates that you think we might match up with?
I get on LinkedIn, and it's a very efficient and effective way to identify prospects. We have proprietary targeted lists of nearly every city manager, city administrator, county manager around the country for every size, and we can target correspondence with them in marketing the position and or aggressively recruiting someone for the position. And you know, sometimes you don't necessarily want somebody that's just looking for a job. You want to identify individuals who are happy in their current job and see this as an opportunity to better themselves professionally, or maybe they've been somewhere for 10 years or 15 years, they're getting a little bored with where they are, and they want to take on some new challenges, and we find that all the time. And sometimes people want to, you get up to my age, and you have had enough years to actually retire in one system, and you see an opportunity, and within 5 to 10 years have a second retirement system as a part of that. So those are some attractive kinds of incentives that we try to promote and market to individuals. And I mentioned already where I go in and target associations, professional associations for individuals that appear to be leaders in the field in their various state associations. And I'm very active with ICMA and with my master's program that produces a lot of city managers around the country. And there are a lot of universities that, not a lot, there's probably 10 around the country that are really focused on developing city manager candidates through their MPA program. And so we target those universities and identify people that have relations with them, and that's how we pursue those.
Great. All right. Any outstanding questions if anyone forgot? No? Well, thank you, Art, so much for being here tonight.
Great.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we have one more. Is everyone okay? You good? Everyone's okay? This is called a marathon.
I want to introduce Kristen Navarro from Strategic Government Resources, and of course she has her PowerPoint presentation up there for you all to look at. And again, Kristen.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor and Commission. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. What a great turnout for a council meeting.
It's all for you.
I figure you all came to watch me present about SGR. So my name is Kristen Navarro, and I work for Strategic Government Resources. So this evening I'm going to go over a little bit of our process, kind of the background of SGR, and then feel free to ask any questions that you may have. So we'll start with a little bit of our background. So SGR exists. We're very passionate about developing innovative leaders and creating innovation in local government. We were founded by our CEO, Ron Hollyfield, in 1999. And his main mission was to facilitate the development of innovative leaders within local government across the United States. We're very passionate about our core values, integrity, philanthropy, continuous improvement of processes, both within our organization and within other organizations are very important to us. And then we are also a full service firm. So we do specialize in executive recruitment. We also have live training, online training. We offer interim management services as well to place interims in between finding a candidate if that's needed. And then we also offer strategic visioning and consulting with councils and commissions as well. Something that makes SGR, I think, a little bit different that helps sort of set us apart. We have a weekly newsletter that we call the 10 and 10. And that is a newsletter that is put together by our CEO, Ron Hollyfield. And it's really an update on servant leadership, which is something that we are very passionate about at SGR. One of our core values is servant leadership. And that newsletter goes out every week to over 66,000 email subscribers. And when I go through the search process, you'll see how we use that newsletter to promote the city manager position here as well. We also send out very targeted emails to a database of over 4,000 participants that have chosen to receive emails that are specifically requesting emails on city manager, town manager, county manager openings. So they are specifically looking for jobs right now in city management. We also have SGR's website where your city manager position would also be posted, and our website receives over 36,000 visitors each month. Separate from our website, we have a job board, and that job board where this position would also be posted. We have over 1,800 jobs listed at any given time on our job board, and get about 16 to 17,000 local government job seekers visit that job board every month. So we've developed what we feel like are 5 keys to a successful search. So the first thing, and I think one of the most important things for us, is having a very comprehensive understanding of your organization, the unique culture of Paducah, exactly what you're looking for, what the community feels like they want in a city manager, just the desires and the needs of your organization. We want to make sure we have a really good understanding of that. There's a lot of good city managers out there, but we want to make sure that we get the city manager that's right for you. So we also have very targeted talent marketing that reaches a national candidate pool. A lot of that is done through social media marketing, and I'll go kind of over that a little bit more here in just a moment. Something else that we're very proud of and that we take a lot of pride in is our candidate vetting process. We vet our candidates very extensively. They go through extensive media search and background checks so that way there's no surprises. Nobody's going to come in where you're surprised by something that you find out is in their background that we didn't find out. And I'll go through that a little bit more too when I go through the process. Another thing, not only do we want to have a really good understanding of your organization, we want the candidate to have a good understanding of your organization, really know the job that they're applying for, and really know the community that they're stepping into, and be passionate about the community that they're stepping into. And one of the ways we do that is creating a position profile brochure, and I'll show you that here in just a moment as well. And then finally, we just want the process to be as smooth as possible. For you all as a commission, I know you have a lot on your plates. You're very busy, but we also want it to be seamless for the candidates as well, and want them to enjoy the process and learn more about themselves and the organization as they go through the process. So this is what I was talking about, the position profile brochure. It's kind of small if you can see it, but this is an example of one we've done recently on a city manager search. This particular one was done for Beaver Creek, Ohio. So we're going to have a section on the community, which really goes into detail about your community, what's important to your community, what's important to your citizens. And this is what the candidate's going to see when they apply for the position, so they know as much as they possibly can about you all. Then there will be a section on government and organization. It kind of goes over your organizational culture, your structure, how things are organized here. And then probably the most important section, I think, is the ideal candidate section. And that's really going to go into exactly what you want in your next city manager, any sort of key attributes or any challenges that might be facing the city that you need the city manager to address. So that ideal candidate section is going to be really important. And we work with you very closely on developing that and get your approval, of course, on this brochure before we post it anywhere. I talked a little bit earlier about social media marketing. So what we have found is over the last about 5 years or so, more than 50% of job seekers are using social media to look for jobs, whether that's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest even. So we're going to cover every single social media site that there is in order to generate a diverse pool of applicants, because I think it's really important to have that so that in order for you to get a great fit. So as you can see up there, just a few statistics. About 80% of job seekers currently are using social media in their job searches. And almost 75% of organizations feel that they have hired successfully using social media in their searches. So we're definitely going to use social media. So some examples of what SGR has done using social media, in all of our searches we do this. We'll post it on our Facebook page, on our Twitter page. We have a Pinterest page dedicated to jobs. The job announcement will go out in our weekly 10 and 10 newsletter with over 66,000 subscribers. We also will post it on LinkedIn, Instagram, and then we have targeted job alerts that go out to candidates we send those out every Friday. And so your city manager position would be a featured job in those job alerts. So this graph just shows you a little bit about where our candidates come from. So as you can see, well over half, 65% of our when candidates get to the semifinalist round of the search process, which we'll go through here in just a second, most of them are going to come from direct outreach from us, whether it's the recruiter reaching out to networks that they have on their own. Almost all of our recruiters are retired city managers, so they have very strong networks of their own. Whether it's our website, the 10 and 10, all of the social media sites I mentioned earlier, a strong majority of our candidates are going to end up coming from our direct outreach. And then you can see on the others, we will also do other ad placements in different sites that we would send you a list of the ad placements before we posted those, and you would have the opportunity to approve where we post the position as well. Okay, so that's a little bit small. I'll go through our project methodology here. So our timeline for a typical search is about 12 weeks. That's following the approval of the position profile brochure that I showed you earlier. So kind of the first step of the process is the recruiter is going to come and meet with you all, whether it's individually or as a group. If you want citizens, stakeholders, community members involved in that, they'll come out and do what we call profile interviews. During those profile interviews, they're really going to be asking you questions about what you're looking for in your next city manager. They're going to ask questions about, the organizational structure, the culture here, and this is how we make sure we get a really good fit for your organization. And that goes into the development of the brochure. Once the brochure is developed and finalized, the position is launched, and we leave it open for 30 days typically. And during that 30 days is when we are advertising and marketing the position on all of the social media sites that I discussed earlier, through our networks, through our newsletters, things like that. Once the position closes after that 30 days, and during that 30 days, the recruiter is going to be interacting with candidates and be looking at their resumes and rating the candidates. So at the end of the 30 days, there will be a meeting scheduled with you all, what we call our triage meeting, where the recruiter will come in and meet with you all, and you will go and we'll present to you all of the applicants. We will present them in ranked format, so they'll be ranked in tiers A, B, or C. Tier A being the best candidates that we feel would be a best fit. Not only do they meet the minimum qualifications or exceed the minimum qualifications, but we feel like they would be a good fit for your organization. Tier B candidates being those that are qualified and meet the minimum qualifications, but maybe need more discussion on whether or not they'd be a good fit based on their background or experience. And then Tier C candidates are those candidates that just don't meet the minimum qualifications, but we still want you to see all of the candidates so that you have an opportunity to understand the entire diversity of the applicant pool. So during that meeting, the facilitator will work with you on narrowing those candidates down to about 8 to 12 semifinalists. Those semifinalists will be required to complete a written questionnaire and an online pre-recorded interview. So you'll actually get to see the candidates, kind of see the way they interview before they ever come in for an in-person interview or even move forward in the process. And so we will also do what we call our stage 1 media searches during that time. And stage 1 media searches are kind of a basic LexisNexis search where we look for any really big red flags, do a quick Google search on the candidates, make sure there's nothing out there that we need to know. Excuse me. So once the semifinalists have had an opportunity to complete their assignments, you will get probably about a week before the recruiter comes out to meet with you again to select finalists. You will get what we call a briefing book, our semifinalist briefing book. It's going to include the candidate's cover letter, resume, and their responses to their written questionnaire. And then the recruiter will share with you anything that we came up with in the media searches that we feel is important for you to know. The recruiter will come back out then and facilitate a discussion to select finalists from those semifinalists. And that typically narrows candidates down to about 4 to 6. And those are the candidates that would come in for an in-person interview. On those candidates, we do a more in-depth background and media search. So that background check is going to include driver's license, credit check, if there's any civil court filings, anything like that, anything that comes up on the candidate, we would find in that background check. It'll check their education, everything that there is really on their resume to check. And then the media searches will be more in depth. We go through and we check all of the local newspapers if they're a current city manager, previous cities where they've been city managers. We'll check the local newspapers. We'll check anywhere we can to make sure that we find any information that would be important to know about the candidate before bringing them here. And then once all of that is completed, you will get another briefing book, the finalist briefing book. And that's going to include their cover letter, resume, answers to the written questionnaire. It's also going to include a DISC assessment. I'm not sure if you're familiar with DISC assessments, but I think you got a copy of it in the proposal. So it really goes in depth into to their management style. It's going to talk a lot about and show a lot about the candidate as far as, are they going to be a collaborative leader? Are they more of a micromanager? Do they like to get into the weeds? Which is very important to know as far as whether or not they're going to fit in with your organization. So the DISC assessment is very beneficial in getting to know the candidate a little bit better. So all finalists are required to complete that. And then that will also be included in your finalist book that you receive. And then the recruiter will help facilitate scheduling all the interviews. He will communicate with the candidates and do everything on your behalf. Scheduling interviews. We'll work with you, obviously, on dates and what's most convenient for you. And we'll be back out here for the interviews for the candidates and facilitate that entire process. He's kind of the air traffic controller, if you will, making sure everything is going the way it needs to go, and be present for the interviews if there's anything that you need. We also offer post-hire workshops where, the recruiter can come back out after the candidate has been in place for, 6 months or so, just to make sure that everything is going well and working, that you all are working well with the new manager. And then we can also facilitate the negotiation of contracts and things like that once you decide on a candidate. So we really help from beginning to end the whole process with whatever you guys need help with, and want to make sure that the process is seamless and make it easy for you and let us do the work for you. Any questions about the process?
No, I don't think so.
So this map just kind of shows our thumbprint. We've done searches all over the United States. Recent searches that we've done that are new states that we've added to our list, probably the most recent is we're doing the Eugene, Oregon Police Chief search right now, and we just wrapped up the Bozeman, Montana City Manager search. So we really are all over the United States, and we're very passionate about local government and making sure that all local governments in the entire United States are really have the best leadership in place, and again, servant leadership being the main thing driving what we look for in a leader. So as far as what makes what makes us different, number one, our price is our price. So what you saw in the proposal as far as pricing goes, it's never going to go above that. So if for any reason we had to come out for additional trips, or we had to do any sort of additional work in any area of the process, we're not going to charge you extra for that. It's never going to go over what's in the proposal. You will always have 24/7 access to your recruiter, and also to our CEO, Ron Holyfield. He's always available. You'll have both of their cell phone numbers. You'll have my cell phone number. So if you need something at 8 o'clock at night, we're going to be available to talk to you at any time. At the end of the process, if for any reason you don't feel you've found the right candidate, then we'll start the process over, and we're not going to charge you the professional fee again. We will do that again so that you're not having to pay for that again. We want to make sure that you find the right fit for Paducah, and make sure that you find the right fit for here. So if for any reason you feel like you don't find that, then we'll start over and make sure that you do. We also have a guarantee. If the candidate that is placed and goes through our entire vetting process leaves before 18 months, then we will do the search again for you, again with no additional professional fees or no cost to you. And then we also, if we place a candidate with you, we're never going to come back and solicit them for another job. So once they're here, they're here. We want you to find someone that's going to be here for a long time, that's going to be invested in the community, and that's going to stay here and be part of the community. So we're not going to ever come back and try to, hey, I found another job that you might like. We're going to make sure they stick with you for a long time and that you're happy with them. That is all I have for you guys this evening. Do you have any questions or anything for me that I can help with?
Commissioner?
It's pretty clear.
Commissioner?
I'm good.
Okay, Commissioner Holland?
Same question.
Okay.
How often does the first round not produce a hire, and do you exceed the sort of traditional timeline?
No, we usually will not go over timeline ever. I mean, our process is very strict. So the issue that we mainly run into will be just scheduling conflicts when everyone's available.
Well, I mean, like when you produce the finalist and they say none of these are going to work, we have to start over. Like, how often does that happen?
That honestly, it doesn't happen a lot. Of course, it's happened a couple of times, but I wouldn't say that that's something that does not happen on a regular basis at all.
Mr. Rhodes?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for not reading the PowerPoint.
Sure, absolutely.
Who would be your lead recruiter?
So it would be Doug Thomas. He's a former city manager. He was a city manager in Lakeland, Florida for a very long time. He's one of our star recruiters. He's been in local government business for almost 30 years. Probably more than 30 years actually. He has a lot of experience as a city manager. He has a very strong background with local government and does a lot of work and works very closely with local government organizations throughout the United States. And his resume should be included in the proposal as well.
Yeah. Excellent. I don't think I have any questions. I think you covered it. Thank you for being here. We
Yeah,
appreciate your
absolutely.
time.
Thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Very good. Okay.
All right, guys. I knew you were going to ask me that. What do you think about that? You good with that? Okay. Commissioner Holland has requested a quick restroom break. So I'll give you a chance to stand up for a second and shake it off, and then we'll get started into our other business, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Don't mind. I'm going to call this meeting back to order. If you can find your chairs, please.
Should we open the doors back so people can hear?
We are going to open the doors, and we're going to let just a few people in to stand by the walls. Chief Barnhill is going to help with that process.
Hey, Tanya, could we open that door there, just have a little...
What did he say? Air with that door?
We can.
All right, he's going to let a few people in.
Greg, you want to open that
And
door
then-
too so people can hear?
Once he gets in. So, great. We have a little bit more business to take care of before we jump to this ordinance anyway. So, okay, so let's move forward with that. We have a consent agenda in front of the commissioners, and items on this agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless someone has something they want to pull off tonight. Does anyone have anything they need to pull? No?
You already pulled the one item.
That's right.
Right.
All right. The city clerk will read the items for recommendation, please.
Okay, consent agenda for January 9th, 2018. Minutes for the December 19th, 2017 City Commission meeting. Reappointment of Glenn Anderson, Linda Crow Curtis, and Kelm Burchard to the Paducah McCracken County Convention and Visitors Bureau jointly with the McCracken County Judge Executive. These terms shall expire December 31st, 2020. We have received and filed documents, personnel actions, and some municipal orders. First municipal order is amending Section G, Engineering Public Works of the fiscal year 2017-2018 position and pay schedule for full-time employees of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, to reduce the number of laborers by 2 and increase the truck driver positions by 2. A municipal order authorizing the Planning Department to apply to the Kentucky Heritage Council for a 2018 tax credit allocation for the City Hall renovation Phase 1 project. A municipal order accepting the bid for sale to the city of 1 half-ton 4x4 SSV pickup truck for use by the Fire Department Fire Prevention Division, and a municipal order accepting the bid for sale to the city of 1 red 4-door sedan vehicle for use by the Fire Department Fire Prevention Division. And that's all items on the consent agenda.
Great. I move to accept the consent agenda as proposed.
Second.
Thank you very much. Roll call.
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Holland,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye. Okay. You guys have been waiting for this. All right, so before we jump in and put this motion on the table, which is what will happen tonight, I have a few things I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with. The first thing I want to acknowledge, and unfortunately the people in the hallway are not going to get to hear this, but it is true that we have an overwhelming crowd tonight. But I do want to ensure everyone that we have been receiving emails and phone calls, and I would guess that the majority of people here have been doing that. So I do want to make sure that we're aware that just because you're in the room tonight, one night, that we have heard as many people who has reached out to us. So it's important to me that you know that we have done that listening process that we are all very dedicated to doing. I also want to just ask you for a minute to take a moment to look around the room and to see that your neighbors are sitting beside you. Because as I mentioned during the Chamber's State of the City address, something I'm very proud of that our community did last year was have some tough conversations. And this is a tough conversation. No one in the room can say it is or isn't. It is a tough conversation. And so I want to ask you that tonight we're going to show our neighbors love and respect, even if you disagree. That is completely okay. You deserve the right to disagree, okay? But when you come to this podium, I want to see that we are thinking about the words we're using, that you're not using words that you wouldn't use with your neighbor or your spouse or your daughter or your sister, whoever that may be, okay? So we're dedicated to that up here, and I know you guys are dedicated to that also, but I think the tone needs to be set that that's how we're going to proceed. And I will ask you to step away if you start to use language that is disrespectful to people in the room, okay? Make that clear. All right, and this is how this is going to happen tonight. I am about to read a motion which will put this conversation on the table, and then we will have public comment. Now, this is the stack Actually, it's bigger than this because I took some out. This is the stack of public comment. These are people who want to say something from that podium over there. And because we all want to go home eventually, this is the process we're going to put in place that I think is fair, and I've learned over the last year that I think is fair. We are going to set the clock for 40 minutes of public comment. I have what I said when I said I remove people. I've actually taken people to put aside that do not have Paducah addresses because this is an issue in our local city. If you do not have a Paducah address, you might make it if we get all the way through this list, but you might not make it, okay? So 3 minutes per speaker. 40 minutes total is what we're going after here, okay? And I'm gonna be really thoughtful about how I choose these, and that I'm gonna try to be fair and balanced. But unfortunately, not everyone wrote on here whether they were for or against something. So I'm gonna try my best, okay, to do that. If you no longer want to speak, or you are here on behalf of a group, and a lot of you put your name in the pot, and you think 1 or 2 of your group is sufficient, so we can give other people time, please just be honest and say, you know what? That's okay. Let someone else talk. All right? Okay. Fair enough for everyone? And then after that discussion and after that your ability to come up and speak to us, we will have discussion among the commission, and then I will ask for any amendments that are brought forward, that need to be brought forward from any commissioners if they have amendments, okay? And then we will proceed that way. Okay. This is going to be a very respectful, business-like environment with lots of compassion, I'm sure. Okay, next, let's see. First up, I'm going to read the... Did you move it on me?
No.
Right.
Now, are you reading the motion?
I'm reading the motion.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. All right, here's the motion. On December 12th, 2017, the commission introduced ordinance which would repeal and replace Chapter 58 of the Code of Ordinances governing human relations. After an animated discussion at the December 19th, 2017 commission meeting, during which we heard from several members of the community, we decided to withdraw the motion and second for further discussion. Tonight, we will consider and vote on that ordinance. At this time, I would entertain a motion to consider this ordinance.
And here's the motion.
And this is the motion. Thank you. I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Repealing Chapter 58 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, and replacing it in its entirety." This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance will repeal Chapter 58 of the Paducah Code of Ordinances, which governs human relations. This ordinance will further replace Chapter 58 to provide that the City Human Rights Commission shall have the duty of receiving complaints of discrimination based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, familial status, age, or disability, and of facilitating the filing of such complaints with the Kentucky Commission on Human Rights or such other applicable state or federal agency. This ordinance also adds gender identity and sexual orientation as categories of discrimination and grants the Human Rights Commission the duty to receive and investigate complaints of discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation, and to hold hearings and issue orders requiring cessation of such discrimination.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, first up on my pile, I have, I think, Robert Story, who lives on Whippoorwill Lane. Sorry if I got your name wrong, Robert.
Mayor, Commissioners, it's not that you can't read well, I can't write.
I'm going to set your timer, okay? So no offense if this goes off, but I just want to let you know.
In all due respect, I stand in opposition to the language you wanted to add to this Human Rights Commission. I was listening to our mayor this morning on 570, the Greg Dunker program. I'm still concerned because I'm not hearing any language that will protect the Christian business owner that will not render services asked for because for conscience sake. And I want everyone to know I'm a born-again believer. I'm a Christian. And I have respect for all people because Jesus changed my heart. He took the hate out of my heart and gave me love for people. And all Christians should love and respect people. So I stand in opposition to this. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next up, we have Daniel Cohn. Oh, Daniel, I'm sorry. I thought he was getting up. I think Daniel Cohn, Kohn.
Daniel Cohn, K-O-H-N. Daniel.
Anyone? Takers? Okay, I'll put it over here just in case he comes back. Nathan Yancey of Paducah.
Keep coming.
You got 3 minutes, Nathan, okay?
Thank you all for allowing me to address the commission tonight. A couple of things I want to say is, one thing to think about is all you have to do is replace the words LGBT and gender identity with African American. That's basically what this boils down to, is treating people fairly, treating people with respect, and letting them know that they matter in our community. And I think that any language that would add any type of exemption that would allow businesses to discriminate is going against exactly what this measure is setting out to do. And I think that's very important to protect our community and to let others know, not just inside the LGBT community, that they matter, but to let other people in this area know that Paducah is a diverse community that respects inclusion. And that's the image that we want to project to others outside of our community. We want to be welcoming here. So that's basically what I wanted to add to the conversation tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for being here. Thomas Berry.
Mayor, City Commissioners, thank you so much for allowing me the time to come up here and speak. I know my timer's set. I'll try to be brief. I've got some notes here. So tonight I want to come before you and oppose this act. I think that one of my concerns is where there are laws that are passed at the state or local level, they put the rights of religious freedom and conscience in the crosshairs. We've seen many cases where ordinances that elevate sexual orientation or gender identity to civil rights status end up punishing business owners who refuse to support or participate through their goods or services in same-sex weddings. So recently, the Oregon State of Appeals has upheld a $135,000 fine on bakery owners Aaron and Melissa Klein. Their crime was for refusing to bake a cake for a lesbian wedding. And if you think about that for a minute, a $135,000 fine for simply refusing to provide a cake, that doesn't seem appropriate to the crime. They were not opposed to baking a cake for the homosexuals. They were opposed to using their creative talents for something that they felt went against their religious beliefs. Serving a gay wedding was a violation of their religious beliefs. Serving a homosexual or lesbian was not. The proposed fairness law doesn't make that distinction. And I just want to call to mind, listen to what the owner of the bakery, Melissa Klein, told the Daily Signal. She says, "We lost everything," she said. "I loved my shop, and losing it has been so hard for me and my family. That was a part of our life, and it was something that we thought was going to be passed down to our kids. It's something that I miss every day still, and I don't think I'll ever be able to get over it because it was our second home. And as a resident of Paducah, I've seen businesses closing, leaving the Paducah area for many different reasons. And I love this city. I was not born here. I moved my family from Dallas to Colorado and to here, and I pray that I never have to leave here. And one of the things that I truly love about this city is the fact that there's not civil unrest. This issue, I've not seen cases where there's anything in the court system that would prove that this is an issue. I want to see this city grow and prosper and not become another city where there's civil unrest and local business owner who's already in danger of closing in a startup because of large businesses or large startup fees have more reasons to struggle. Why couldn't that couple find another bakery? Why did they want to force the clients to do something they had a religious objection to? And why should anybody face a crippling crime over their own religious convictions? This proposed ordinance before you tonight has been called a fairness law. I just would like to go on record
That's fine.
saying
That's
I'm
fine. You can
opposed.
finish. I'm going to turn this off for you, though. Hang on just a second.
I'm
so you don't
almost
get
done, I
interrupted.
promise. I
It's
just have
fine. It's fine.
A few more sentences.
Yeah.
I respectfully ask you to vote this down. I want to go on record as a resident that I'm against this ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your
Nathan.
time.
We appreciate it. Joshua Ayers. Joshua Ayers. It's not every day you get the police chief yelling.
Like the award show where we can play people off.
There he is. Do you know the 3-minute rule? Have you
Yes,
heard
ma'am.
about this? Okay, here we go.
I just want to thank you for allowing me the chance to speak. This ordinance being proposed here tonight is set to protect members of the LGBT community from discrimination in the areas of employment, public accommodations, and housing. I think everyone in this room can agree that preventing discrimination of any kind is a just cause. However, I believe sexual orientation and gender identity amendments present considerable cause for concern. Is there such a rampant discrimination in Paducah? Is this discrimination causing strife and unrest, which would menace its democratic institutions to such a point where our community is in need of an ordinance protecting sexual orientation and gender identity? If this is not the case, why is such an ordinance necessary? Exactly how many documented cases of sexual orientation or gender identity discrimination have there been in this area? Could this ordinance lead to punishment of local business owners who follow their religious beliefs or personal convictions, which are themselves protected by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution? I feel there are many troubling questions raised by this proposed amendment. Sexual orientation and gender identity laws can force individuals to violate their moral and religious convictions, and religious exemptions do not adequately protect people of faith. Questions and concerns are raised, such as could proprietors be forced under the employment provisions of this ordinance to hire individuals for fear of reprisal, or under public accommodations provision, could they be forced to participate in the celebration of same-sex weddings or other events, even if this is expressly contrary to their religious convictions. While this ordinance does contain some religious exemptions, these may not necessarily protect the rights of individual Christians, Jews, Muslims, or others. For-profit companies may not qualify for these exemptions, so faith-based bookstores or other religious-led companies may all be forced to compromise their principles, which are explicitly derived from their faith. Moreover, the laws that are instituted to be inclusive may actually cause people to conceal their views or lie in order to avoid facing punishment for expressing them, thus making those people feel discrimination from the law for their religious views or moral convictions. I am not trying to say that those who hold more traditional values are feeling the level of discrimination felt by the LGBT or other subsets of the population who have faced discrimination throughout history. What I am saying is, why perpetuate this type of atmosphere by passing this ordinance? This ordinance is legislating morality. Social conservatives have been accused of doing this all the time. Yet these sexual orientation and gender identity laws are filled with moral significance. The traditional family has been encouraged because of its far-reaching benefits to society as a whole. This ordinance, on the other hand, is an official government declaration that homosexual and transgender lifestyles are equivalent to heterosexual behavior in every way. And if you are someone who doesn't believe that, you are considered intolerant. I feel the vast majority of Americans would not agree with this. This ordinance creates a spiderweb of the hiring and firing process. I see the possibility of resources being taken advantage of and the free market being infringed upon. In my opinion, we should not be instituting such a divisive ordinance. I do not support intolerance or discrimination in any way. I am supportive and open to any and all people. I respect their individuality and believe in their right to live their life and pursue their happiness, free of judgment and persecution. But I do not believe in anyone being forced to agree with or embrace the personal choices of others. Any law that does not allow for the difference should not be passed. Thank you for letting me share my thoughts, and I would like to go on record for closing this.
Thank you. Alvin Moore. Is Alvin still around?
I saw him. I hugged him.
He's right there.
Oh,
Hey, there he is. Hi, Alvin. You know the 3-minute rule?
Yeah, I have to read awful fast.
I know. I will stop you though, okay? I don't want to be rude, but I will because we have a lot of people
Okay.
wanting to talk.
Mayor and Commissioners, thank you. The ultimate goal of any ordinance or discrimination should be to respect and ensure the liberty and justice of all, adequately addressing structures of bias that obstruct the civil rights of any individual or people groups. Liberty demanded the Declaration of Independence of these United States you and I live in. Yet due consideration was not given to the structures of bias that existed then. You and I truly must consider our attitudes so that unjust mistakes of our nation founders are not continually repeated. 4 statements in the Declaration of Independence document the founders' faith in a creator, God, that God is the ultimate source of all human rights and duties. It says that the law of nature and nature's God entitles the United States to independence. It says that men are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. It says that Congress appeals to the supreme judge of the world. It acknowledges a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. These words of faith, history reveals, lacked the power of the people's just attitudes, motives, and behaviors to responsibly demonstrate this faith in practice. Numerous legislative actions were drafted to encourage behavioral adjustments. The Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, documented civil liberties that should be respected by all. The 13th Amendment made slavery illegal. The 14th Amendment confirmed all individuals as whole persons and as such should receive equal protection under the law. The 15th Amendment declared all races have the rights to vote. The 19th Amendment declared all women have the right to vote. The 14th Amendment in 1868 has had 5 civil rights amendments. That was in 1871, 1875, 1957, 1960, and 1964.
30 seconds, just so you know.
In 1964, it made discrimination of African Americans and women illegal. These collective actions are necessary because too many of us are unjust, selfish people. Unjust in the sense that too many of us exercise our freedoms to disrespect the rights of others. This continued disrespect of others hardens our attitudes and terminates opportunities to establish the loving, trustworthy fellowship necessary to maintain a healthy nation. History suggests needed is an ordinance that establishes and empowers a city rights commission with the tools necessary and training to clearly define acts of injustice within diverse human situational contexts and ensure that justice is served. However, identifying every subgroup that may face discrimination seems counterproductive.
Wrapping up?
Take
Alvin.
time and the
Alvin, are you wrapping up?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Rather take the time and insert the narrative necessary to clarify that any human being who finds him or herself in unhealthy situations or circumstances, including discrimination, should have available to him and her available opportunities to significantly improve these circumstances honorably.
Alvin,
Justice is
it's been
served to
I
the
have to be
degree
fair to everyone,
our
Alvin.
collective systems of thinking and acting continually
Alvin,
result
please
in
don't disrespect the process that we're in right
resolution
now.
and
I appreciate it a lot. And you can
of our
submit that in
effort.
writing, Alvin. You can submit it in writing, and we'll read it. We will, please. But I have to be very thoughtful about everyone else that's here tonight.
right.
Okay?
So
Thank you.
I say we should reject these every categories. That
Okay.
is not.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry I had to cut you off. Yeah, there you go. Leave it. Thank you. Can you make sure that the commission always gets a copy of that? There's that one. Next up is Dan Patterson. He's right here, Chief. You ready, Dan?
Thank you, Mayor Harless and City Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Dan Patterson. I'm a citizen of Paducah, Kentucky. The 3-minute thing, I was going to take you through a walk through history. It's going to be a rapid race.
Okay.
So let me begin right now. I support this amendment. And to prove my points, I'd like to take you a walk down history, and I think it's appropriate that I followed Alvin there. He actually enumerated some of my points, so maybe that'll help me to shorten things. History is a good thing. It can be used as a tool for teaching, to absorb knowledge. We read books or we view pictures of the past, and that allows us the opportunity to achieve that. There's pertinent moments and events in history that are related to the discussion of this ordinance. There's a common thread I'm going to try to tie into to prove this. Let me begin by defining a most understood word, and that word is ignorance. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines ignorance as simply a lack of knowledge, blindness, naivety, illiteracy, crudeness. And I hope my points convey through these historical facts and truths that will educate some, thereby removing the element of ignorance in consideration of this proposed ordinance. My first point I would like to make is, and Alvin kind of alluded to it, in 1848, the Seneca Falls Convention in New York City, there were 68 women and 32 men met there, and they defined the Declaration of Sentiments for the right of women. But yet it took 72 years later before women got the right to vote. 72 years. In 1896, the U.S. Supreme Court in Plessy versus Ferguson allowed state-sponsored segregation, but yet it took 52 years before the U.S. military ended racial segregation when President Harry Truman signed the Executive Order number 9981, which is a political act unmatched since Reconstruction. It took 58 years after that before, in 1954, the United States Supreme Court in Brown versus the Board of Education integrated schools. It took that long before that happened. In 1967, in Loving versus Virginia, Richard Perry Loving and Mildred Jeter married in the District of Columbia, where interracial marriage was legal. He was a white man, she was a black woman. But yet they moved back to Virginia, where they were promptly arrested and jailed. The Supreme Court ruled in 1967 that this was a violation of the Equal Rights, Equal Clause protection in the 14th Amendment. In 1969, a riot ensued at Stonewall, a bar in New York City, where New York City policemen brutally attacked bar patrons at a gay bar. The patrons were dragged into the street, they were beaten, they were pistol whipped, arrested, and jailed, simply because they were in a bar having a cocktail and they were attacked by policemen.
You did hear the timer, right?
Pardon me?
It went off. The timer did.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can make a point, though. That's fine.
Okay,
You can wrap
thank
it up.
you.
Yeah.
Through many terrible incidences and plagues and suicides, mostly by teenage children who have committed suicide, simply because they were told in some way they were abnormal, worthless, or evil. And tragically, sadly, a lot of that they heard in the church. Wow. In the church.
Okay.
And I'll try to make my
Thank you.
point quickly. I'm
Hurry. I
qualified
don't want
to
to interrupt
speak
you,
on
but
that
keep going.
because I am an ordained Southern Baptist deacon. As a disclaimer, though, I no longer participate in that denomination. Believe me, I am qualified to talk about that.
You want to submit your thoughts in writing to us?
Yes,
That'd be great.
I sure will. My last thing.
I got to be fair, Dan.
Okay.
I got to be fair to
urge,
everyone.
my point is, I know Christians here sincerely believe your ideas, but remember that some people's privileges turn into others' oppression after a while.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Let's see. Let me make sure I'm fair on this. I think Valerie Arterburn. Are you here? Valerie Arterburn? She's right here. She's coming. Thank you. That's okay. You don't have to apologize. It's okay.
I did
Hi,
the
Valerie.
timer. I really wasn't expecting to be up here.
Oh, okay.
So, but I do thank you for the opportunity. I'm a mother of 10. I have 3 boys and 7 girls, and I am raising them in Paducah, and I love Paducah. I've come to love it. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, and this was a place that I cherished very much. So I guess I appreciate he made a comment of, the Bible says in Proverbs 9:10 that people will perish for lack of knowledge, and that's true. It also says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And I'm a simple woman. I don't have a speech, but I really don't want to see this passed. I'm just thinking realistically as well where this can lead. I have little children that know what boys and girls are, and if they absent-mindedly and just, if they're going to call somebody who is not, it puts people in a really dangerous position, I guess, and for sorry, I'm identifying. Yes, I'm sorry, and I'm obviously not a public speaker, clearly.
You don't have to be at that podium. It's
Well,
okay. You're doing fine.
and I'm extremely nervous. I'm probably going to pass out any second. But
no, don't straighten your knees. Bend your knees.
But yeah, okay. So anyway, and I just I am so thankful for those that are speaking well on my behalf, and I support them and the things that they have spoken. I agree with, and I would like to see this not pass, please, for the sake of my kids and my family. I speak on their behalf.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you for being here.
Three boys.
Will not speak. Accompanying but will not speak. That's the person's not speaking. That's over here. We have David Tyndall.
How you guys doing? Most of you know me. So, my name's David Tyndall. I own a business here in town, Tyndall Tech. We do IT and digital marketing. So I've got a rather unique perspective because also I do a lot of nonprofit work. I'm actually on a couple boards.
Will you pull that microphone down?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So am I. I think there's some elements here that aren't really being properly addressed. First off, our area has a severe problem with it being poor. I mean, the average income here is about $28K, and most people spend about $41K, and we've also got a over 20% poverty rate, and our skilled youth is down to 0.5%. You'll find most people that are in support of this are young, and it's because they want to feel included, and they want to feel accepted. Now, I personally, as a disabled person, have been discriminated against by people that run businesses in town or other things. And what they'll say is they'll try to justify it to themselves, saying, oh, I know somebody that's disabled, so I'm not treating you differently, or something along those lines. And yet they do it. They treat people differently. We have, and if you think that bigotry and racism doesn't exist here, read any comments on any of the WPSD posts on Facebook. Oh, wow. I mean, yeah, we have a serious problem here. Somebody has sat here during the statue thing and said they have lived here all their lives and not felt included. That would mortify me. There should be things to include people. And I'm not asking anybody to change their mind on your faith. Nobody's saying that you have to stop believing in whatever. But man, there is a certain level of professionalism. We have a certain obligation. Our main economy here is tourism. And now everybody's got a smartphone. All it takes is somebody coming through here and saying, my services got refused because of X, Y, and Z, and then it's all over the national media. And you're going to kill our economy real quick. That's all it takes. And so even if you disagree with somebody, man, I do business with people I disagree with every day. You know what? Treat them like people. Treat them like human beings. You know, there's a great friend of mine said 2 things you don't discuss is politics and religion when you do business. Okay? You just don't talk about it. I have friends of mine that do businesses with other people that you just don't talk about it. And if somebody's in your business and behaving properly, why not go ahead and service them? I mean, be a professional about this. Quite frankly, I deal with a lot of businesses. They don't have the money to say no. I mean, that's the real brass tacks of it. They just can't afford it. And unfortunately, I've heard from a lot of people that it's going to take a few funerals to change the area. Boy, I hope not. I really hope not. Because everybody, regardless of what they do or how they feel or what they do in the privacy of their own home, just be professional and treat people equally. I don't think that's asking too much. I mean, just do. I know if somebody's misbehaving or something, we have laws against that. You know, I mean, they're creating a public disturbance, call the police. But if somebody, say, comes into a coffee shop and wears a suit and tie and you don't like them, no, you can't kick them out. That's not right. You know, and the phrase is two things, and I'll wrap it up, is one is, well, if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. Well, two things to address that. One, we live in a rural area. There's not a lot of choices, so sometimes you can't. And two, they are going somewhere else because people are leaving. They're getting fed up with it. They're getting tired of hearing it, and they go somewhere else. And so until you're willing to accept that everybody has to be, and once again, this
We
ordinance.
gotta wrap it up, Dave. Your time went off.
I know.
Okay.
This ordinance
We're
doesn't
not
say
gonna
you
make
guys
this a
have-
precedent, guys.
No, I know.
It's happened 3 times in a row now.
I know. Nobody's saying change your mind, but we're all saying is if you own a business, because that's the part I'm against, is the amendment is you have an obligation to the community to be professional and treat people professionally. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Okay, next up we have Danielle Fernandez. Oh, yes. I think that you probably have people in this list, don't you, from your group, that they signed the piece of paper? Did they? Or is your name in here?
It's not.
Well, I have to have all the information ahead of time before that can happen.
We've got, we do have others.
In the list?
Yes.
Okay, great. We'll see if we get there, if that's okay. All right, we have next up Kevin Gantz, or Gantz, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Gantz, okay, good. I'm gonna set your timer, okay, Kevin?
All right. Thank you, Mayor and City Commission, for the opportunity to be here to speak. I'm a pastor at Grace Fellowship. I'm here tonight to speak on the proposed fairness ordinance. One of my concerns is what an ordinance like this does to religious freedom. The First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution guarantees freedom of religion. It says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Religious freedom means to live and work and raise a family according to one's religious convictions. Religious freedom is something that extends into the public arena as well. It's not just something we enjoy on Sundays, but it's for all people of faith, all 7 days of the week. My concern is that this ordinance jeopardizes religious freedom for those who disagree, particularly with same-sex weddings. Consider a headline from the Washington Times dated October the 20th, 2014. It read, Idaho city's ordinance tells pastors to marry gays or go to jail. It was related to a, quote, fairness law that elevated sexual orientation and gender identity to civil rights status in the city of Coeur d'Alene. Pastors Donald and Evelyn Knapp were threatened with fines and jail time by the Coeur d'Alene city attorney because they refused to perform gay wedding at their for-profit wedding chapel called the Hitching Post. The city attorney threatened them with a 180-day jail term and a $1,000 fine for each day that they declined to officiate the same-sex wedding. In 2016, a federal lawsuit was eventually settled in the Knapp's favor, and the city was fined $1,000 instead. The question I have is, if this ordinance is enacted, will pastors be exempted when they are operating in pastoral capacity apart from their church? If pastors in their pastoral capacity will be exempted, then will people of faith who own businesses or rental properties be exempted when they appeal to their conscience and religious convictions? What about owners of Christian bookstores, Christian radio stations, a Christian-run daycare? Would they be forced to put aside their moral standards and religious convictions if this ordinance were passed? I have many friends in the gay community, and I want them to be protected as American citizens. There are laws already on the books for that protection, and thus this ordinance is unnecessary. I don't believe in elevating sexual orientation to the civil rights status. For these reasons, I respectfully ask that you vote against this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Okay, again, I'm going to try to be fair. I'm going to try to go back and forth, but I'm not 100% sure that this is going to work. Jen Smith. Hi, Jen. Oh, your time's up, Pastor.
Only times I was short.
Beat me to that joke. Okay, Jen, I'm push and go. You ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Love is love is love is love. I love Paducah, and I'd love to see our community lead the way in Western Kentucky in sending a message to the world that we are
That's not
open for
mine.
business as an inclusive city that stands for all human rights, and we welcome you. I would love to see Paducah join the other 400-plus cities and counties around the country that provide fairness protections for our LGBTQ population, and be on the right side of the law with the majority of the federal courts that have refused to allow companies or individuals to refuse services on religious objections or on the grounds of free speech. As an American, I want separation of church and state and do not want religion determining law in our city, especially when all religions do not condone discrimination. Let our religion be kindness, and let's all practice that golden rule. So in everything, do unto others what you would have them do unto you. Don't discriminate. From my place of privilege as a white heterosexual, I urge you to pass this ordinance with no amendment allowing for religious exemptions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Gil Arterburn. Is Gil here? Oh, there you are. I imagine that was your wife that was here earlier, or someone you're related to.
That was my fine bride. We have 10 children. I've been living in Paducah for 53 years, and I have this, but lots of people have been reading stuff. I'm just going to share as a Paducan. I knew Richard when he was only about 225 pounds. He was in 3rd grade, I think. And
Watch yourself.
We played basketball together. We've done a lot of things together, helping kids. We used to have a thing with middle schoolers, lots of things around town. I was reminded tonight from my good buddy Robert Shy, my old buddy Robert Shy, that's around here somewhere. You all know him. I didn't even remember this, to be honest with you. When I was at Paducah Tillman playing basketball, we liked to cut up over on the bench, and there was a homecoming vote. I forgot that the basketball teams actually even voted on that, but he reminded me tonight that there was a tie between the white homecoming queen and the black one, and I sided with the black one. I didn't even remember doing that. I told him it was because she was prettier, but I don't really know. But I've never had a problem with that. Robert, you were in my youth group when you were just a long time just wet behind the ear. We both a little older. We've gotten along. I've gotten along with people of all different races, religions, and as many as there are around here in Paducah. But I must say that it grieves me that to come here and see this tonight. I like, because I'm an American, to see the process working, especially opposed to how it might have happened with just almost nobody knowing about it and passing in that way. But to me, this is unnecessary. When I asked a commissioner what problems we were having in Paducah, they answered me, none at all. But we want to be proactive, and I understand that. But sometimes if you were from Heath or somewhere like that, your daddy would have just told you, if it ain't fixed, don't broke it, right? And so maybe this comes under that heading. And anyway, I think we're going to open a Pandora's box. The issue is not the same. The issue of race, nationality, age, religion are fairly cut and dry, objective things, and we're going to throw this messy thing in there. I looked up on the internet that in the United States we had 50 genders on Facebook, in the UK 71, and my son, because I'm kind of a dinosaur, corrected me and said that no, there was 121. Well, where does it all end, really? And how are we going to sort that out? I think it's beyond our wisdom to do. If nobody's being persecuted already, maybe this thing in the most times is used to persecute a certain other group of people, and it's not right, and it's going to be troublesome. And I fear for my family, my children, my grandchildren. And I ask that you would reject this and think longer and harder about this issue before you press on with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. All right. Again, I'm going to try my best to be fair. Miss Deanne Yates. Almost, yeah.
Hello, everybody. I wrote something. I prepared something here.
Pull the microphone down, Misty.
Okay. Can you hear me better? All right. My name is Misty Ann Yates. I'm a Paducah resident and founder of the Paducah Progressive Action. I'm here to encourage the City Commission to vote yes on the Fairness Ordinance and no to the Religious Exemption Amendment. As a resident of Paducah and a part of the LGBT community, I feel this is very important for all of us. This isn't just about giving special privileges to certain groups. Sexual orientation, gender identity, and age, they aren't things that should bar a person from house, work, or your services. In Kentucky, everyone can get married now, but still they can be denied work, and they can be kicked out of their house. It would make me so proud to live in a town that showed that they upheld the values that I do, that everybody should be created equally here and treated that way. If you pass this ordinance and include a religious exemption to it, the point of the ordinance would be rendered useless. No other city in Kentucky has that has passed this kind of law, has that kind of clause, because when you do that, it doesn't just take away the protections for the LGBT community. It could discriminate against me because I'm a woman and I walked into a place that doesn't want to serve me. So that's way too broad of a clause to have in there. As you can tell, I'm very nervous. I think
You're doing great.
You have 1 minute and 24 seconds.
So much.
Okay. I just want to say that not only is it for the residents here, but it's also for the people that visit here. We have the quilt show. We have the Lowertown Arts Festival. I think that doing something that would protect all of the people here, not just living here, but visitors as well, would be very, very beneficial for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you.
All right. We are at 40 minutes, but I'm going to do 2 more, if that's okay with everybody, because we have such a big pile here, and I want to keep hearing from a few people. So we're going to do 2 more. All right, I'm going to try to be fair on this. Would you mind telling me if you're for or against? If it's not on here and obvious to me, I will ask you, so we can get one from each perspective, okay? So we can be fair here. So my first one is, I got an email from her, so I think I know her perspective. Judith Watson, are you here?
You don't have to set the timer for me.
Are you sure? I'm going to anyway,
I'm
just in case you get
positive.
carried away, okay?
I want to thank you all for having me speak at this time. And as Mayor Harless said, my name is Judith Watson. I've lived in Paducah since 1981. And I would urge you all to vote no to this fairness ordinance. It seems to me it would make more sense to wait until the Supreme Court decisions on this come down so we know how things will go. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Judith, and thank you for your email. Okay, the next up on my list that I'm not 100% certain, but if you'll just let me know, Heidi Sir Heinrich, are you still here? I'm pretty sure she is in favor of it, but I'm not 100% certain. Hi, Heidi.
I had not expected to speak tonight.
Your name's on this paper.
Someone put that in for me.
Oh, your daughter behind you.
The most important thing to say as I look around these faces is I love you all. I know you from different walks of life, and you are my daughters, my brothers, my next door neighbor, my cousin, the person that was my best friend in kindergarten. You are all my best friends, and to me, this is about love. It really is. And sometimes I wonder, why wouldn't we do this? Why wouldn't we make sure that everybody had access to basic human needs? Why would that be a question? That's not the community that I know. Our community makes sure that every person is taken care of, that nobody goes without. That all people are valuable. All people are meant to be respected. We are all of one family. And this is a hard thing. And I find that it's a scary thing because we're afraid of change. We don't know what it's going to mean. We're afraid it's going to make us change our own personal values in some way. But I don't think it is. I think it's more about generosity of spirit, of compassion, of largeness, of looking out for each other and taking care of each other. And I think we take care of our own in this community. I hope that we always will. And so I think it's important that we state that publicly and make that very clear in this community. And whichever way it goes, I still love you all.
What a beautiful, thank you. Thank you all so much. I hope you'll stick around for just a second. We are going to have some discussion. Sorry, ma'am, I usually don't take from the floor. Yeah, we haven't heard any emails from the business community either. But no one is designated on here as business community representatives, ma'am.
Well, I put one in for.
I'm sorry. This is the process that we're going through. Yeah.
That's not the main thing.
So guys, we're not going to do this like this. This is a formal business setting. You can submit your thoughts in writing to the commission. There has been time to do that. We have received lots and lots of emails about your specific point, about businesses' rights, for and against. We have received a lot of information, and this is the way that we do this process. I don't know that we know that, ma'am. No one mentioned their business or not their business. So Dave Tyndall was a business person. That's a good point. So we are now going to enter into the discussion phase amongst the commission. And then we will see where this goes from there, okay? We do have our attorney here in case there gets any room that we need to ask him for any of his advice or thoughts on this. I will ask Commissioner Wilson, do you have anything you want to say, ask the commissioners, anything like that? Okay. Commissioner Rhodes?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
This is just
Commissioner
about
Holland?
amendments. I don't have any amendments to offer.
Not amendments, just discussion. We're just having discussion.
Sure.
About the ordinance that's on the table right now.
I would love to talk. Okay, so there's a few things that I want to address based on the public comments and the emails I received. The first is that I got a lot of comments and a lot of concerns, as Mr. Otterburn so charmingly put it, if it ain't fixed, don't broke it, so that we don't have a problem. So one of our healthcare professionals in the community sent me in a really amazing study called Discrimination in America from National Public Radio, the Robert Wood Johnson, and the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. That was a sample of 3,453 adults. I guess y'all are giggling at the NPR part. So it was a survey of African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, Native Americans, white men, women, and LGBTQ adults. And the section on just what LGBT community members had faced was pretty stark. 90% of LGBT people believe there is discrimination. Pretty large number saying they faced it. But look, the reality is statistics are kind of dry. might not represent what's in Paducah. So I wanted to hear specifically from the members of the LGBT community, because I'm not a member of that community. So I reached out to citizens of our community who are also LGBTQ. I was told lots of stories, many of them sad, about being called slurs while they were working, of receiving uncomfortable comments. I was told, as a young person dating a same-sex partner at a McCracken County high school, I had dirt kicked on me and was spit at and at one point threatened with physical violence. I was one of those fortunate enough to have never experienced violence threatened. I know people who did not escape. Later, as a young woman in Paducah with a child, I had a relationship with a woman and lived in constant fear that I would lose custody of my child. I know others who did lose their children because of their sexual orientation. And in one of the last 4 years, I was denied employment in Paducah after being pointedly questioned in the interview process about my marital status and personal situation. One member of our community said, "I don't want special treatment. I don't want people to think that I'm trying to be above anyone in society. I simply want what we all deserve: equality, respect, and basic human decency." So I just wasn't comfortable saying, well, because we've had no complaints, that means there's not a problem. There would be no reason to come to the Human Rights Commission with an LGBTQ complaint, because they have no jurisdiction over that issue. So there would be no reason to come to them with a complaint. So I also, there seems to be a misperception. A lot of people told me this was a law already on our books. So it's not surprising to me that there's a perception that there are laws already on the books with regards to state and federal protections for the LGBT community. And that's also not the case, particularly in the state of Kentucky and federally. There are some questions with regards to administrative changes and bureaucratic enforcement. It's not the protection that we want for our citizens of the LGBT community. So the other concern that I had heard over and over again in the public comment and in the many, many emails and messages I received was that this policy discriminates against Christians and or threatens Christians wanting to express their faith. And I think at the end of the day, what I realized bothered me about that is that there seems to be an assumption underlying that taking on any discussion of LGBT status is by definition attacking Christians. And what bothers me about this is that I'm a Christian. My husband and I take my 3 boys to church every Sunday. I take communion, I confess my sins, and I repeat the words of the Nicene Creed. That has been a symbol of Christian faith for over 2,000 years. And it makes no mentions of gays, lesbians, or transsexuals. And while, I've read the Bible, I understand that there is debate among Christians about that. It is not definitional to being a Christian. And so it upsets me to think that members of our community feel that this is an attack on Christians. We have room inside the Christian faith for all sorts of debates. Some Christians believe women shouldn't be allowed to vote. Some Christians believe that children should dance with snakes. Some Christians believe that in vitro fertilization is a violation of their faith. There's lots of room here. And so I worry about defining Christianity through these very narrow theological debates. And so I've also reached out and tried to find or hear from a community Christian business owner who's worried about their specific business practice, and I haven't heard from any. If you still feel that way, I'm welcome. I would still love to hear from somebody, because this is not written in stone. Our laws are living, breathing documents, and this is a conversation we're starting. I'm proud of the way we're having it. I think it's really beneficial to our community, and I think that's probably the third thing that I heard, is that it's really divisive. And I like to quote A League of Their Own, one of my favorite movies, when the coach says, "Of course it's hard. What's hard is what makes it good." And this is a hard conversation. But I believe that Paducah is up for it. And I believe that we are strong enough to discuss what our values mean, and how we want to exercise them and respect each other and love each other no matter how that discussion ends up. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Abraham.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Yes.
I work at Paducah Tillman High School. That is one of the most diverse school systems in the state of Kentucky. And it works. It works there. This basically comes down for me, and this is I'm going to bring you all into my thought process as we were deliberating this thing individually. Commissioner Holland talked about she was a Christian. Well, I am too. So that being said, I'm looking at this thing, and this is me. I feel like Solomon, but what I'm holding is not a baby, it's the Constitution. So as a believer, I'm like, okay, how can I show my compassion and at the same time, as a commissioner, understand that even though some of you may not have voted for me, but I'm still your commissioner. So I have to keep that in mind when I'm deliberating on how to approach this thing. So for me, basically, it came down to at the basic level, the conflict between two groups. You got one group that is looking for what? Equality and equal protection. And I don't think anybody in this room want anybody hurt, discriminated against, basic needs just for living deprived. I'm pretty sure the city that I've lived in since 1972 would reach out to help anybody in need. We had Miss Heidi up here. A lot of you guys know her. She has a giving heart. That the business that she's executive director, crazy work. When you look at our community and the needs, from if it's Hungry Bowls to food drives to whatever, we show up huge every time. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, okay, so the other group is looking at, well, let me go back. First group, all of that, what I said, equality and equal protection, is mandated under the 14th Amendment that the gentleman talked about before. The other side, the religious side, are liberties guaranteed to each individual, everybody, upholding rights to religious exercise, free speech, and freedom of association. Okay, so here we are. Rich, what you gonna do, big guy? The lights are on, the mics are hot, the TVs are right here. What are you gonna do? So as a commissioner, I'm like, okay, I have an amendment. It's not perfect, but who in the room is? Here's the deal. No matter what we pass, no matter what the Supreme Court of the United States passes, we are going to have to get along with each other. We can't escape the personal responsibility on either side on how we treat one another. So the amendment that I'm proposing here in a minute was, you talk about fairness ordinance. Okay, fair for whom? One side or the other? There's two sides to the counter. So as a commissioner, I'm like, okay, I need to make sure, best of my ability, and I'm speaking for me, to make sure whatever legislation that I'm involved in and I can influence on passing has to be fair and just for everybody. That's my
Thank you.
comment.
I appreciate that. I do want to say a few things before we move on to possible amendments. It sounds like you have one. Before we get to the final vote, one thing that has been really interesting to me along the way is really learning and really shining some light on what the City of Paducah's real enforcement opportunities are here. It's something I really want to point out right now, and to the commission as well, that the reality of all of this is that a human rights commission on the local level does not get to trump state law, federal law, none of that. It doesn't get to do any of that. And in fact, at the end of the road, if I bring a claim to the Human Rights Commission in the current way or the future way, at the end of the road, when that group of people does their investigation, all I get is a written letter that says, these 5 people have done an investigation and here is our opinion. That is all I get. Now, because the Human Rights Commission should be a group that helps with reconciliation and mediation of conversation, that can stay confidential until both parties decide it's not. That piece is so important to me because the concerns I've heard about people being forced to do things they don't want to do and being dragged across the finish line in ways they don't want to is not really something that the City of Paducah, your government, can actually do. Now, let me say this. There definitely is weight to carrying that piece of paper with an opinion across the street to the courthouse, but they don't just take that piece of paper and say, you're right, let's go for it. They do their own investigation in the courts. The courts is really the most important piece of this conversation right now. And when Commissioner Holland said this is a living, breathing document, the reality is that there are cases in front of the Supreme Courts right now that have been mentioned tonight that haven't been ruled on. And the moment that those are ruled on, our city attorney is going to call us and say, this is actually the new law, Mayor and Commissioner, and we have to amend our ordinance to reflect the new state or federal law. So I want to make sure that we don't give the City of Paducah more power than they really have. That's really important to me tonight. What I suggest that we're doing by adding this language into our ordinance is making an expression and a gesture of support to a community that has felt ostracized. And I have heard the stories. I sat in Maiden Alley Theater at a documentary by a couple from Murray State that shared their story of their relationship. It was a gay couple. And they asked the audience to participate in conversation. And a man dressed really nice in suit and tie was sitting in the audience, and he raised his hand and he said, I haven't told a single soul this, especially in public, but I have been discriminated against in this community. That was a safe setting for someone to express that concern. And I think we have to be honest with ourselves. If we're not in safe settings where people can say this is happening, you're not going to hear that it's happening. And my background's in public health. And in public health, we talk a lot about prevention. We talk about how we prevent things from happening in the first place. And I would make the case that by doing this and making this expression, we are preventing the issues that you're all concerned about in our community. Because we are coming out and saying, we support this group of people, and they deserve our affection, and as Heidi beautifully put it, our love. So I wanted to make sure I cleared that up. I think it's an important piece of it. This conversation, I want to say, after this vote tonight, is not over. Our Human Rights Commission is charged with going out into our community and having this discussion. What are their roles? What is your role? How does this actually work? That was a part of this ordinance to make sure that our community knows how this is supposed to work. Because, guys, this has been on the books as it is right now for a long time. 70 years almost, this has been on the books. And very few people know that it existed, in the former way, of course. So I think we have a lot to learn in our community. And I think this is a really good start. So having said that, anyone else change their mind? Want to say anything? No? Okay. I will call for amendments if there are any proposed amendments, excuse me.
I have one.
Okay.
You ready?
Go for it, please, yes.
I hereby propose an amendment to the Human Rights Ordinance as follows. That no business owner shall be forced to participate in any activity that violates his or her deeply held religious beliefs.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Commissioner Holland?
I understand the concerns about religious freedom, and it is my understanding that there is already a Religious Freedom Restoration Act on the books in the state of Kentucky. The state of Kentucky law trumps anything we can do here. They've already put those protections in place. And I was thinking, as you so eloquently put that Solomon analogy about my own children. I have 3 boys. And I was thinking, what would I say if one of my sons came and said, I'm going to lose my business, this business I poured my heart and soul into, because my faith prohibits me from offering services to this person. And if I had a son that came out to me and said I'm gay and I've been discriminated against, and I'm concerned that my full humanity is not recognized within the law. Which of my children could I look in the eye and explain this vote to? Depending on which way I voted. And I love my children. Both conversations would be difficult. But I feel comfortable that I could have a conversation with my child about their faith and the exercise of that faith throughout their business. No matter the intense impact of that business, I do not feel confident that I could look my other child in the face with regards to respect for their deepest humanity. And so, knowing that there's already Kentucky state protections in place, I'm opposed to this amendment.
Thank you. Yes, please, discussion.
There are laws on the books currently. There are also court cases currently that this very topic is being debated, being argued. I don't know how that's going to turn out. I would prefer we pull this back and wait, but that's not going to happen.
I'm happy to wait on the amendment.
So if we're gonna do this, then like I said in my statements before, this fairness, I'm all about that. But if we just don't have one group. We have folks that are concerned that people are people, and everybody doesn't obviously think the same way or believe the same way. Yet we are tasked to putting together a document that tries to handle that. So if that's the case, then the wording that I want amended into right along with the very specific language, and I want to iterate specific because sometimes you can look at a document and it's referred to, or I like the kitchen table version where it says that no business owner shall be forced to participate in any activity that goes against their deepest religious beliefs. So that's plain talk. Now, you're right. It may not keep someone from being sued or whatever, and they'll take that paper and they'll go across the street and then they'll handle that in that arena. But if I understood correctly, our task was to try to come up with a ordinance that was fair and just for everybody. Or I'm pretty sure that's the way I took it.
So when your amendment says religious beliefs, so if I'm a business owner who finds in vitro fertilization as violative of my religious beliefs, would I be able to turn away someone who wanted to host a baby shower at my event center for a successful in vitro fertilization?
Activities that goes against their deep religious beliefs.
Okay, is that a yes or no?
Well, I'm not a judge. That's why you take it across the street.
So I'm just worried about the depth of that exception.
I'm worried about the whole thing. I mean, look, within my own family, you mentioned family, somebody mentioned family. We all have family. Nobody wants to sit next to Uncle Bob at Thanksgiving because we know how Uncle Bob is, but he's family, and we love him anyway. But, I mean, I have folks in my family, friends that they think differently than I do. I don't agree with their lifestyle, but I still love them, right? But what we're asked to do is put together a document that is as fair as it can be. I'm all about that, but it's never going to be perfect. So basically it comes back down, no matter what we pass or no matter what the Supreme Court passes, ultimately, when you walk into my shop, I'm going to have to treat you like the person that you are. I'm going to have to treat you with respect. You should, anyway. How do you legislate that? You can't. You can't. It comes back to an individual responsibility, honoring the person in front of them. Now, you can't write a law that says you got to do that, Richard. No, I don't. That's on me.
No.
No.
Guys, hold on just a sec. Oh, sorry, do you have
Yeah,
a
I do.
response? And I'm going to ask the other commissioners if they have any thoughts or questions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that you cannot legislate morality. However, we have stepped up in this country repeatedly and said, this group deserves protection as best we can provide it. As best we can. And we're going to try because the time is always right to do the right thing. And, you know, I think that, you know, you have more than one kid, I got more than one kid. We're not going to make everybody happy. There's no way to create a space in which everyone feels perfectly protected in every scenario, because we live as a collective. And part of that exchange, and when you live as a group, and we decided we were all going to move to Paducah and live together. Some of us were born here and just never left. That's cool too. So when we decide that, we have to make that balancing act. We have to walk that tightrope, which is what we're trying to do right now. We have to say, I understand your concerns, I understand your concerns, and they're going like this, and how do we figure out a path forward? And my concern with this amendment is that it creates too broad of an exception, and that we have a state law that already exceeds our authority, is higher than us to begin with, and specifically protects the exact concerns you are enumerating. That's all. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions, thoughts? I have it right here in front of me.
Okay, I was just going to ask, should the city attorney address the state law that does provide protection for business interests through KRS 446.3.350?
Right. That is a possibility that can be put in there.
She just wants him to talk about it, right? But you just want us to explain the law?
To ask about it, to bring it up?
He's
Oh,
right
sure.
here. Sorry to put him on. You
the
got to
spot.
hang out so long.
Mr. Denton, sorry about that. You almost got there. Let's all acknowledge that this conversation can get very fuzzy very quickly. Which thank you, Commissioner Wilson, for asking the attorney to come up, because I think it is important, once again, before he gets up here on his way, that we realize that the City of Paducah cannot trump the state law. We cannot do that. We cannot do that.
So I guess that was my question. Could he clarify that?
Please. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening to the people in the audience and to the members of the commission. I'm listening to the debate that's kind of going on between one commissioner and another commissioner and others chiming in. And I'm reminded of the fellow at home that said one time, he said, some of my friends are for it, some of my friends are against it, and I'm for my friends. So in trying to address this tonight, I'd like to say I'm trying to address my friends. There are a couple of points that have been made about state law. I think you all handled the ordinance and its nuances quite well, and the discussions have made in some very eloquent comments that came up from the audience. But there are a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind about state law is that, first of all, there is a state law in Kentucky that covers all sorts of human rights type of matters. We've had them on the books for years, and all of us are more or less familiar with that. It does not, however, cover anything to do with gender identity. It does not cover anything to do with sexual preference. But the legislature, in their wisdom, I guess we would say, left the door open and very specifically said to the communities that if you would like to extend protection in your community to a group that you believe is deserving, then you have the power to do that. And we give you the power to do that. And you do that through enacting what's now being called a fairness ordinance. In short, a fairness ordinance it's a buzzword for meaning equality for all. And that's what the communities that have put the fairness ordinance in place have been trying to do. They've been trying to use the state statute and the opportunity given to the commission that they can take this kind of action if they believe it's in the best interest of their community. And that's the way this particular ordinance was drawn. I'd also say to you that there is a very important, and some lady in the back a few months ago, I couldn't catch her name, mentioned something about business. And there's a very important piece of legislation on the books, and Commissioner Wilson referred to it a minute ago, and it's the religious freedom legislation. And it says, and I paraphrase, I could read it to you, but it says that if a government, if a city, wants to impose a burden on a business because of religious matters, then that city carries the highest possible burden to show that that has to be done. And even then it has to show that what they have done is the least onerous way to do it to the business. If all the businessmen and women in Kentucky sat down and drew up protection, you couldn't have more than that. That protection is there, it's on the books. And as the mayor, I believe, a moment ago said, the city has absolutely no power whatsoever to diminish that. So whether this ordinance went through or didn't go through, and what we've been operating in the past is under that state law. It's extremely strong. I haven't surveyed every state, but I can't imagine how you could set the bar higher before a business is actually persecuted by exercising its legitimate business rights. So that is an issue that I think here some people have said and worried about, and I don't know that that's totally responsive this little speech I've made. And I had not seen Commissioner Abraham's amendment, but it's very similar to one that he had showed me before, I think, and the wording is virtually identical.
Commissioner, I think Commissioner Abraham, that's okay. Let him ask the first question.
Well, what you quoted, okay, could you explain that to me?
Which one?
About the business, the business, the protection of the business. That's very, very strong.
Yes, I'll read it to you. It says, government shall not substantially burden a person's religion or freedom of religion. Shall not. It says the right to act or refuse to act in a manner motivated by a sincerely held religious belief may not be substantially burdened unless the government proves, and listen to this bar, proves by clear and convincing evidence that it has a compelling, that means it must do it, a compelling governmental interest in infringing on the specific act, the religious act, and has used the least restrictive way to enforce that. Now, there's a couple of other words there, but that is essentially saying to cities, do not think you can start putting ordinances out there that burden businesses who have sincere, legitimate religious beliefs. It isn't going to handle in Kentucky. Now, somebody that probably doesn't follow this is going to say, what about Lexington? Well, what about Lexington? We don't know, do we? All we know is that something has been challenged up there, and what we do know is that will be decided by a court. And we also know, as the mayor, I think, said earlier, that if a decision is necessary after we see it, we can certainly come back and amend this. These ordinances are not set in concrete. We change them from time to time, and we always change them when we find that our ordinance is no longer compliant with state or federal law. So I'm interested in seeing about Lexington too, but that might be 6 months or 6 years. Who knows what the court will do? And the same is true with the Supreme Court of Kentucky, the Supreme Court of the United States with the Cake case, as it's called. So,
Dave, I think Commissioner Wilson might have had another question or a
No, I hadn't brought that up, what you said, but I was just saying that nothing in this takes away from the protection for businesses.
no, ma'am. Not in any shape, form, or fashion.
Great.
And it wasn't drawn with that in mind either, with an implied intent or any other way. It's very, very straightforward in that area. And I suspect, knowing the ladies and gentlemen we have up here, that when we get some decision from the courts, the first thing we'll do is look at that and decide, what do we need to do, if anything?
Yep.
We may be fine, we may be off base. We're not clairvoyant.
Thank you very much for being here. Does anyone else have any questions for Dave specifically?
No.
If not, I'm going to move on to the vote. Is that fine with you?
I'd like to make the motion for the previous question.
Yep, great. All right. She'd like to. No, it's fine. You don't have to do that. We're just going to vote.
Okay, never mind.
Yep.
I'll take it back.
What do you? We're voting on the amendment that Commissioner Abraham presented. Is everyone comfortable with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Abraham.
Aye.
Commissioner Holland.
Nay.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Nay.
Commissioner Wilson.
Nay.
Mayor Harless. I'm sorry, Mayor Harless.
Right. Nay. We are going to move ahead. Yes, exactly. Yes. All right, guys. Guys, settle down. It's late. We got to take care of business. This agenda is way longer than when you leave the room, okay? So we're still going to be here
For like another hour.
all right? We are now going to return to the original motion on the table, which we have on the table right now. It is on the table, so we can call roll on that now. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Abraham.
No.
Commissioner Holland.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, guys. It has been great. I know most of you are leaving the room because you're not interested in Paducah Waterworks surplus property known as the Massac Pump Station property.
You can stay.
But you should be.
Highly excited.
You can. So
Thank you
please leave quickly and briefly. Be very safe going home, guys. Please say hi to your neighbors who disagree with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone who
All right,
came.
swiftly.
I really wanted to catch that lady
Which one?
who said she was a business owner.
She's in.
She was wearing purple.
Commissioner Holland, you have a motion. Is everyone good
I'll be in
with
touch.
continuing?
I do. I have a motion.
I'll be in touch. Thank you.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance declaring municipal...
Guys, if you guys will just be quiet on your way out, you can talk when you get outside, okay? Quiet on your way out, talk on the outside. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that.
An ordinance declaring municipally owned real property generally located on Massac Church Road and known as the Massac Pump Station property held for the use and benefit of the Commissioners of Waterworks of the City of Paducah, DBA Paducah Water, as surplus and approving the sale and transfer of same. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance authorizes the City of Paducah, Kentucky on behalf of Paducah Water to quitclaim a certain tract of substance or surplus real property generally known as the Massac Pump Station property to Derek and Shi'Ann Miller.
Second. Hi there.
Hi, Jay.
How are you?
Fantastic. All right, you're on. Here's your 15 cents of fame.
Yeah, hopefully we're going to get everyone out of the room and shut the door in just a second. So we can hear you, I hope.
Sure. This pump station is no longer needed. It used to create the Massac pressure zone, and we've completed some capital improvements and through some flow testing determined that the pump station is no longer needed. So it's been eliminated, it's been torn down, and the site's been restored.
Wow.
And how big is this piece of property?
It's
About
less
this
than a
room?
tenth of an acre.
It's bigger than this room?
Barely. Substandard parcel and sealed bids. We had one bid, and it was from the adjacent landowner.
Any other questions?
I'm on that board.
Oh, that's
so I've
right. You
already
are on
kinda
that board. Good for you. That's great.
It was unanimous
Thank
at the
you for
board
being
level.
here.
Sure.
Really appreciate it.
I've never been so pleased to be standing at the podium.
Do you feel like you won the lottery?
That's great. Well, it's 8:22, so hopefully you have had dinner, but if not, I bet you're
I
hungry.
snuck out to Italian Grill. It was fantastic.
Oh, now you're just being mean. Rub it in, buddy.
It was great.
Awesome. All right, we're going to move ahead. Thank you so
Very good.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jason.
Commissioner Abraham, I think you have a motion.
Oh, those are just introductions. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's an introduction.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2017-06-8487, entitled, an ordinance adopting the City of Paducah, Kentucky annual budget for the fiscal year July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government. This ordinance is summarized as follows: that the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018, ordinance number 2017-06-8487 is to be amended by the following reappropriations. Transfer $100,790 from the Boyles Trust Fund within the Capital Improvement Fund to the Greenway Trail Phase 5 project. Transfer $256,216 from General Fund reserves to the City Hall Phase 1 project within the Capital Improvement Fund.
Second.
No, yeah, second.
Second.
I'm out of it. We've been here a while.
Hi, Rick. Do you want to give us a brief overview?
I'll attempt to, Mayor, Commission, thank you. We have some exciting things on the agenda tonight. With regard to this, a short answer for this, when we estimate project and budgets, those are estimations to the best of our ability. But then when we have bids and more concrete information, we have better answers. And then when those come in on these particular projects, that's where, when our budget did not cover what those bids come in, we have to make these adjustments. So this first ordinance is making those budget adjustments to cover the next two items on the agenda. So with that being said, I'll just stop there.
I think that Jeff wants to add something to that.
With respect to the budget amendment that's necessary to let the City Hall contract that Rick alluded to that's on the agenda later on, I want to make it clear that at the time that the City Hall budget was brought forward and approved by, I think it was the previous City Commission, that we included in the projected revenues approximately $400,000 in anticipated historic tax credits, and that a lot of work has gone into the process since that time to make that happen, most especially nomination and successful placement of City Hall in this National Register of Historic Places, and secondly, specifications in the bid documents that were made to adhere to the requirements of the State Heritage Council to make us eligible for historic tax credits. So with all that having been said, the historic tax credits is a competitive application, and just to be prudent, we chose at this time to set that anticipated revenue aside and instead draw down to the general fund where we know there's money, we know it's there for sure, and put that in place right now for purposes of letting the contract. We will continue to effort the application for historic tax credits, and when the successful receipt of those is in place, those dollars will not only replace but hopefully exceed the amount of money that we're asking you tonight to draw from the general fund reserve to bring the project budget up to the point that it needs to be to let the contract.
Some nice
Did I make that clear? That's not the longest speech of the night, but
Well, you had the floor.
I had.
And then the Greenway Trail is exciting because you're actually pulling funds away from a family that set aside money for this specific project.
Correct.
And we're spending the money out of that fund for the
Yes.
Greenway Trail.
Yes.
All right.
The intention of that family's dream.
That's right. Good. Thank you very much.
Might as well stay up there.
Hey, Rick. This time I'll be on your side from the get-go.
Commissioner Wilson has a motion. That's an inside joke. We don't know what it means.
I'll tell
Our crowd's little too. You guys are stopping the no one's laughing at our jokes anymore.
Yeah, come on, guys. Step it up. Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson, you have an introduction.
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance accepting the bid of A&K Construction for construction of City Hall Phase 1 project and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for same. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah accepts the bid of A&K Construction in an amount not to exceed $4,293,781 for construction of City Hall Phase 1 project and authorizes the mayor to execute a contract for same.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't know how much you may have read from your packets that went, there was a very, very lengthy background that was given for this particular subject. I don't mind explaining to you all that the original bids when it was open was $4,087,000 and some change from the low bidder. With regard to the historic tax credits that we wish to get with this building being listed on historic places, we have to go through the Kentucky Heritage Council to make sure that our historic restoration, or the restoration, does not, I guess, get outside the parameters of the intent of this building. So that being the case, the windows that were selected by the low bidder were not approved by the Kentucky Historic Council as meeting the profile. Don't ask me to go into that. Okay, therefore, but they did choose from the list of manufacturers, but you don't know at the time whether or not that manufacturer can produce that window, because they have to produce what they call shop drawings to review. As a result of the shop drawing that were submitted by Winco, they could not meet the historic cabinet's approval. So the specifications allow that, okay, if there is one, then you have an option of two things. You can withdraw your bid, or you can go with that it is approved. And then if that requires an addition to your bid, that's allowed, so long as that does not go above the second place bidder. But then if you get to the second place, everybody is vetted through the same process. So all that math and all this plussing and minusing that you saw in that was about that process, where A&K said, okay, I'm going to deduct these windows from this manufacturer and I'm going to plug in those that are approved. That's what's allowed in the specification. Now, do you have two other bidders? Yes, you do. Okay? They're watching this very closely. So this is the introduction. They may wish to have an explanation. We are prepared to make that explanation to them. But based on what we are putting in front of you tonight, we are fully within the rights of the specification, and those are subject to being challenged. They've not been as of this minute, but it is an unusual circumstance. So I'm just putting this in front of you right now.
Thank you for preparing us for that. Appreciate that.
In the next
Yeah.
2 weeks, it could certainly rise.
Yeah.
Whether it's next 2 weeks or next week.
January 23rd.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Commissioner Rhodes.
All right. Tammy, I have this. Tammy, I did find this. You included in the packet. I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for engineering design services for the Greenway Trail Phase 5 project. This ordinance is summarized as follows: that the mayor is hereby authorized to execute a professional service agreement between the City of Paducah, Kentucky and Bacon Farmer Workman Engineering and Testing Incorporated in the amount of $45,900 for engineering design services for the Greenway Trail Phase 5 project.
Second.
Mayor, Commission, City Manager, this portion of the trail, or this portion that's we're discussing, is that portion that is in front of the farmers market area. It goes from the farmers market area to the Jefferson Street, Water Street opening right there at the end of the murals. So this is that area of Schultz Park that has been there, that is the area that's going to get brought up more modern.
About 5,700 feet, seems like.
Well, it's essentially from the farmers market flood wall. It's essentially from the farmers market flood wall opening. That's a diagonal one to all the way to the Jefferson Water Street opening.
So you don't go from the boat dock to the current trail under the showroom?
I think it's
no, that's phase 4. Actually, the transient dock and the landmass is.
So we're
a
going
portion.
there and then we're going back.
Yeah, this is the design contract that's taking what we know as Schultz Park and giving it a big facelift.
Got it. Okay. You guys need to add
It's the other, it's for the head, but it winds around. And
Correct.
all that. Connects all those.
And we are, that portion of the trail is currently funded. It is funded through.
the portion you're talking about for the engineering services.
Yes. That, and because the way we vetted this process, we went through an RFP, and that means that the monies that we pay the engineer can be applied as part of our match to the monies we're receiving from the government for this portion of the
good.
trail.
Great.
So, and it helps us. It has a double-edged sword that helps us.
Great.
Yes, so the last portion is underneath the showroom, right?
No,
That's where we're coming
that's
now.
phase 4. That's phase 4 is the portion
And it's
that we
done.
are
Done.
looking to bid very soon.
Okay, good.
The
what I thought.
phase 5 is the portion
Getting
that
ready.
is just now getting on the drawing board.
Got it.
And this
Very
is in
exciting.
phase 4, connects all those staircases and the
need
and the bump out and
Yes.
and all that.
Yes.
Park bump out.
The park,
Oh,
the
okay.
park that
The
it's
park.
All right,
The
let's move
river.
on if that's
Okay.
okay. Does anyone have any other questions? It'll come back in front of you again, right? So that's good.
You'll get to see them again.
All right.
Are you
Thank
staying
you very
for
much. Are you taking for the next one?
I'm here at your disposal.
Okay, you stay.
Oh, he wants to say something good
For
about
smoking?
you. Commissioner Holland, you have our last introduction for the
If I can
evening.
find it. I got it. Okay. I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Relating to the Protection of the Public Health and Welfare by Prohibiting the Smoking of Tobacco Products in Enclosed Public Spaces, Places of Employment, and Certain Municipally Owned Outdoor Areas." This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance amends Chapter 54, Article 2 of the Paducah Code of Ordinances to prohibit smoking in an enclosed public places, places of employment, and municipally owned outdoor areas. Under this ordinance, smoking will continue to be prohibited in enclosed public places and will further be prohibited in all places of employment, whether public or private. Additionally, under this ordinance, smoking is prohibited in certain municipally owned outdoor areas with limited exceptions.
I need a second.
I need a second. It's okay.
Second.
It's okay. Oh, we're on the same page. Thank you. Kayleen is here to speak if we have any questions. So during our discussion, we'll just wait and see if anyone has any questions. Anyone have anything they want to bring up to make sure we're clear on?
I don't have any questions. I could have some potential amendments, but I think that I'm supposed to do those
Well, no,
next
let's talk
week.
about your ideas for change. They're not necessarily amendments yet because we don't have them formally written, but we can definitely discuss anything that you're concerned about or want to propose.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask about private establishments where people pay membership dues to belong. The possibility of exempting those. Because people pay dues to belong there.
Right. And again, we're
Go
trying.
the microphone.
Again, we're trying to protect all, workers, not to be able to choose their paycheck to a job. And so it isn't the smokers that we're, against. It's really the clean air for all employees.
So you're worried about the employees at the private clubs?
Okay.
And I would say, I understand. And I think for me too on this one, and I think Commissioner Rhodes and I talked about this a little bit, from my perspective, when you're talking about enhancing an ordinance like this, and it's the same conversation we were just having. There's not a problem. Where's the problem, right? But sometimes that's not really the question. The question is who are the vulnerable people that we're trying to protect? And I think in this situation, that is exactly what's happening. It's the employees that are working at private clubs that have had that job for 10 years, but are still having to work in a smoking environment. I will say this, though. I do think that as I look across the state at other ordinances that have included enclosed places, there have been some exemptions I've seen on private clubs. I don't know that it takes away the full evidence-based piece that we're really after here. So I don't know that it's that necessary, but I think it would be interesting for us to do a little bit more research and find out from the private clubs what they're thinking. Because a lot of them have created on their own those little rooms outside. I noticed that the Elks Club did that. They brought smoking outdoors. So they kind of already moved in some direction. I'm just curious I haven't talked to any of them. So perhaps we can between now and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I
Anything
have
else?
one more.
Please, yeah.
We are a tourist city, which has been mentioned. There are currently 21 hotels that do offer some guest rooms with smoking. So I guess I'm raising the issue of exempting those as well.
Especially
Well,
if
when you have shared rooms, the HVAC, it has been proven that there is no HVAC system that will clear the air. And so for those who are in this room smoking, you know very well that you're going to have people in this room having the carbon monoxide in their bloodstream because of someone else smoking.
Caitlin, would you like to comment, though, on those rooms that have individual HVAC? I understand what you're saying about where you have like an entire floor where all rooms sort of breathe the same air. But those hotels that would have a separate HVAC system per room, where each room is encapsulated
Do we have hotels that have that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean, that's a pretty standard way of doing it, because that way, if it goes out, you only have one room affected, not the whole wing. I guess- and
There
so-
are vent systems though, right? Intake and so.
No, you have an exhaust system for the bathroom, which exhausts air out, but the HVAC
You're
system.
talking about those like window unit things?
Yeah, it's kind of like windy, it's glorified windy.
But it would still go in the hallway. You can get
Right.
filtered out of the hallway.
Right.
But my
And-
point is that I understand about taking care of people in Paducah. We're charged with, I mean, you can make the case we're charged with that. But most hoteliers look askance when people from Paducah stay in our hotels. Eyebrows are raised. So my guess is that generally in the hotel population, you have people from other states are staying here. And we are sort of legislating for that person from Ohio or Tennessee or wherever they're just be staying in our. I'm just saying, for those hotels that have separate HVAC systems, I would be curious what your experience has been with like Lexington, Elizabethtown, Owensboro, Bowling Green, Henderson. Those are four.
Well, if I may ask Amanda Bucher, she is from KCSP, which is the Kentucky Center for Smoking-Free Policy, and she has an enormous amount of knowledge of what's been across the state and what she would suggest, if that's okay, if she could come
If you
up
don't
and
mind,
address
yeah,
this.
please. Absolutely.
I think she would have a better answer.
You're using your phone a friend. Your phone a friend. Your phone a friend.
Hi, thank you all.
So I pulled those four, Lexington, Bowling Green, Henderson, Eton, because they were your yellow cities and your blue cities on your on the Breathe map. I'm a big map person. So what did I miss something? But it seemed like they created a pathway for those. It seems like.
So it seems like you have several questions there. Let me start with the tourism aspect of it. We know that 87% of tourists do appreciate smoke-free hospitality environments. You may have seen that already. That's a study from J.D. Power and Associates. So in terms of your question about people coming from other states, I think that you should consider that statistic. In terms of other ordinances across the state, what Kayleen was saying is definitely true. There is no such HVAC system that is going to take those particles out of the air. I'm not talking about gases. I'm talking about the tiny particles. The Journal of It's called ASHRAE is the acronym. It's a journal of engineers. They've determined many times, and I'd be happy to provide you with these studies, that there is no such HVAC system. And so even if each room has their own HVAC system, that smoke isn't being removed from the room. You may not be able to see it, but those particles are still there, which is why we have a problem with things like third-hand smoke, where those particles are settling on materials and then being re-emitted into the air as third-hand smoke. And then also, as Commissioner Holland pointed out, that smoke can go underneath the doors, go into the hallways, and things like that. So that is certainly a concern for individuals staying in a hotel. Now, I don't know if you do have freestanding hotels with freestanding hotel rooms. I don't know if that's something that you have here in Paducah. That might be a different story.
But how is it, when I read the ordinances of those four towns, it appeared, and I'm not an expert at this, but it appeared that they had a carve-out for hotels.
Yes, some ordinances do have, so there are 45 ordinances in the state.
Okay.
They're not all the same, they're all different, and some of them do have exemptions for various things. For example, some of them have exemptions for smoking rooms, some of them have exemptions for bingo halls. There are a lot of different exemptions carved out in the various ordinances across the state, but I'll say from a research perspective, what you want in your community is an ordinance that is going to protect the health of the community. And what we know from research is that ordinance is a very particular kind of smoke-free ordinance. There's only one kind that does that produces these kinds of health effects that we want: reduced hospitalizations, reduced healthcare costs, those kinds of things. And that is a comprehensive ordinance that does include all workplaces and all public places. And hotels are places where people do work. And there are people who are at risk while they are, on their job, working in a hotel. And so that would be something else that I would, want you to consider for sure.
Right. I have one more question.
Sure.
If it's appropriate.
By all means.
And again, these 4 cities, and I may have missed something, and because I'm not but it seemed like I was surprised that none of them mentioned city parks. There's no exemption. At least I didn't see it. Here again, I may have missed it. I'm just relying on the internet and the breathe link to the ordinances of those cities.
But I sent you the Owensboro one, and Owensboro has public parks protected.
Okay. Well, I've just.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll also say that there are quite a few communities that are legislating on that separately. So they have one ordinance relating to indoor spaces, and then there are some communities that are creating separate ordinances or resolutions for outdoor spaces. And so while you may not see them together in one ordinance, that doesn't mean that the community doesn't have restrictions regarding outdoor spaces.
So what are we saying? I mean, they either do or they don't.
What's the state norm on that? I mean, you must have some sense of that. What's sort of the lay of the land across the state on city parks?
So unfortunately, I can't speak on that. I really don't know. We're actually doing a survey right now to kind of get our hands on that, because it's surprisingly difficult to get a hold of ordinances and local ordinances in the state.
Not here.
Not here.
Look at her face.
We are trying to get a handle on that, and so.
But Owensboro is one of them.
Owensboro is
And
Yes, they do have public
I'm
park
not trying to be mean-spirited. I'm just, I guess I was just, frankly, I'll be honest. I was surprised. I expected when I saw the map in Elizabethtown and Lexington, the blue cities, I thought, well, boy, they must have to be the gold standard. And then I read through their ordinance, and I was like, really?
Yeah, we're going to be the gold standard this time.
Woohoo! Yeah. So one
I mean,
thing
I was just surprised because I kind of felt during this whole thing that we were trying to match them. We're going to leapfrog them by private clubs, by hotels, by parks. I mean, even smoking in private vehicles, they don't have that.
You're making their argument for them.
I know. I'm just saying. I mean, we're going to be the poster child. Well, and that's okay, but I'm just saying.
She's agreeing with you.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of am, but I mean, we don't know that.
That's right.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm just.
Yeah.
Trying to turn our reputation around.
Well, you know.
Well, also, I think what
It
the
might
other
be fun
important
to have.
thing.
You know, maybe fun for election to say, who are those people down there in
Yeah,
Paducah?
exactly. Well, but let's talk about that for just a second before we move on, because I think this is an important point. I was at my Leadership Kentucky class in Hazard, Kentucky, and Ben Chandler from the Foundation for Healthy Kentucky came and spoke with us, and Ben makes a great case from the economics perspective of this. I'm sure you guys have seen, but he basically says, like, listen, we are watching the cancer rates in our state not drop whatsoever, and we have to do something about it. And there's too much evidence now in 2018 that is telling us what to do to solve the problem. We can't say no to it anymore. 10 years ago, this evidence wasn't there. And it was easier for us and legislators to say, oh, we don't even know if it's a problem, keep pushing it off. But now the evidence is sitting right in front of us. And it's not just us saying this. It's not just the Paducah City Commission. This is the Kentucky State Chamber, or the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. This is the Foundation for Healthy Kentucky. There's no telling. The legislation right now is talking about raising the cigarette tax, because that's also an evidence-based proven intervention to make sure that we reduce those numbers. So I think that's, for me, we're not standing alone on this. We just might be ahead of the game a little bit and saying we care about this and this is important. And thanks to the group sitting in front of you, that you saw that timeline of all the work that's been put into this. This isn't just waking up yesterday and saying we want to do this. This is from February 2016, I think, was the beginning of this conversation in our community. So I think that's a really important point for our community to consider. And we are going to keep taking a look at this, making sure that we understand how enforcement's going to work and all those kinds of things. So this will come back in front of us, obviously. I'm not going to promise January 23rd, but it will be back in front of us, okay? All right. Thank you all for being here. All right, we're almost done.
Oh, my goodness.
City Manager, are you going to dare?
Oh, I'll just mention one thing.
Thank you all. Good night. Thank
You may have seen the blue recycling roll-offs beginning to be delivered starting late last week. Rick might have an update on this, but the last count that was furnished to me is our subscription had exceeded 400. Is it 5 now?
No, we've about 400.
Okay, all right, so my
right.
information was fairly correct, and the first collection will begin the week of the 22nd, correct?
That's correct.
So everything is proceeding as expected. That's all I have.
Excellent.
And I saw yours on Facebook.
I know, y'all are stealing my comment. They're going out of order and stealing my comment.
No one's going out of order. Well, Alan, you did go out of order. All
I
right,
never
we have
speak.
Commissioner comment. I'm actually going to ask Commissioner Abraham if he has anything he'd like to say before we close out.
Just that it totally slipped my mind. They're gone now, but we're still talking. I'm all as far as the smoking or enhancing goes. I'm all about the educating. I don't smoke. I never have smoked until this play.
Oh, that's right.
Starting on Thursday night, everyone go see Commissioner Abraham
It's horrible. It really is.
at Market House Theater.
However, I'm all about the continuing education from, particularly from young guys and up. However, this ordinance is so invasive, in my opinion. So I'm looking at it. A couple of things. Okay. I don't want my grandson on the playground and I got a guy sitting there smoking a big cigar or cigarette or whatever. Okay, predetermined amount of feet away from playground. Okay, I can go with that. Wherever there's cigarette smoke right now that's prohibited, okay, vapes, you can't go in there either. That's reasonable. Health parks, I can go with that. Other than that, talk about businesses. We were at the chamber the other day, and I'm looking around and I'm wondering how many of those businesses in there allow smoking in their business? Less than 1% of zero. So it seems like I know what the data says, but I get alarmed when government starts to reach off into private businesses and start dictating things. That's a slippery slope for me. So those are my commissioner's concerns on that enhanced smoking ordinance.
I appreciate
I want
that.
to speak to the one.
I want to be careful about having a debate right now because this is not on the table
Okay.
anymore.
Well, I'm just, I'm okay like preventing smoking in public buildings. That's okay. But I think about, like Richard the plumber, who has driving his van to his plumbing work, and he wants to smoke. Well, and by the way, did you say that you're smoking as Dr. King? Or
I'm not inhaling.
Okay. Well, okay. All right, Bill. But my point is, wouldn't we have to have an exclusion for the market house?
They are excluded.
Are they?
Yeah.
To answer that question, we'll have to ask.
I'm talking to Michael about that.
We'll have to
That's
Okay.
All right,
I can smoke
Commissioner.
on stage, but you guys couldn't smoke out in the audience. That's what that is.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm an actor.
Wow. Privileged. All right, Commissioner Holland.
I'm just glad Rick stayed because I just wanted to say that I was really into the 12 days of Christmas this year. I really wanted to enhance the Christmas season and not just celebrate it on one day. And my blue recycling container arrived on day 11 of Christmas, and it felt like a really amazing present. And I am so excited. I did post it on Facebook. People are beside themselves. People are jealous of our recycling containers. One person said, they're really big. Y'all are really dedicated to recycling. And I said, yes, we are. So, very good job, you guys. It really was such a delight to pull into my driveway and see it at the end of the driveway.
It wasn't easy.
Well, I appreciate
We're very
the
thankful
effort.
for all your hard work on that.
Time and all the things. Yes,
It's amazing.
Your
Yes.
staff, and I take my hats off to Chris Garber.
Yes.
All
Yes.
He worked his butt off to make all this happen.
Yep.
Good job.
So it was not an easy task, and I was scared.
That's
And
great.
I will
You
tell you, I
love it.
apologize that I will not have one because we're there every week with recycling.
Have they all been
Yeah.
delivered?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
All right, Commissioner Abraham. I can't get my name straight now,
Wilson.
guys. I'm
Wilson?
almost done. Yeah.
have they all
One
been?
second. Go.
Don't put me on the spot. As we get this information, we deliver.
Oh, okay. I got you.
There we go.
We like
They
somebody
have not
can subscribe
all been
tonight.
delivered.
It's a growing market.
I got you. Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilson,
I have two things.
please.
So I want to know the next step of moving ahead from these three presentations for tonight. I don't want to delay. I feel like we need to move ahead, and if we had a recommendation tonight, I'd like to put that on the floor. Second of all, we pulled the item 616 from the agenda. Do we plan to do anything with that tonight?
Not tonight.
Okay.
So one option, if everyone feels comfortable from the information they were given tonight, I told Commissioner Wilson, if she has a recommendation, she can put that on the table for a search firm. It's a pretty swift decision making that we all have to be okay with.
I agree. And if we don't address 1-6, I'm not sure where we stand, because that changes on Friday.
I think you need to.
Okay, sure. Would you like to do that, or would you like me to?
Would you like me to?
So then, can we come back to the other?
I could give you a recommendation, but I think.
Well, we're not going to vote on it.
The question is, could action be taken to do that tonight, since it's not on the agenda?
On the search firm?
No, on the
Item 6.
Are you talking about the search firm, Jeff?
Excuse me?
Are you talking about the search firm with the consent agenda item? Oh, right. Yes.
Okay, we weren't on the same.
We weren't on the same page. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So we took the item off of the consent agenda because it's no longer on the table. So
Okay.
as of Friday, Jeff will be leaving.
Okay.
And we will need to name an interim city manager.
Do we
take
need
his
to
role.
vote on that?
So we do. And that's what he was saying. We do need to take action.
So that's why I'm asking. I thought we needed to
Sorry,
make a
I did
step.
not know what you meant.
Yeah.
So yes, we will. There has been a recommendation by Jeff that we name Mark Thompson as the interim, and then we can let him be the interim, and we can figure out what the next steps are. There's been some proposals on how to do that for the longer term until we get someone named into that role permanently. So, do you have some comments?
I
you
would
wanna make,
just
please?
say, and you know, I don't want to take issue with any of the presentations tonight, other than to say that I think that they all gave the most optimistic timelines, and I think you need to be prepared to expect that it might be 20% longer any way you go. So I think you're looking at anywhere from 5 to 7 months. So it's a fairly long period of time. So my recommendation to appoint Mark Thompson in the near term, and secondly, to strongly consider getting with one of these firms or more and taking advantage of their temporary placement services that they provide.
I think a couple of them mentioned that, didn't they?
They did.
I think they
Yeah,
did, and these are qualified, for the most part, retired city managers. And quite frankly, among other benefits of that, you get an outside perspective, and I think could probably even assist you in providing some perspective in addition to what the executive search firm did during the search itself. So I think it's an extremely important asset that you need to consider, but you need to move very quickly, because I think the longer period of time that that person is on board, the more effective that can be. Not to take anything away from Mark's capabilities, but it's a different kind of set of hands on the wheel.
That's the main thing.
He does, but he's also directing a city department, and he's part of a management team he's been on the level with for years and years and years, and that again is a key distinction with bringing someone in from the outside that isn't going to have to ascend from that group like what an existing director would.
Great. And Mark has agreed, from what I understand. Oh, the city attorney has a comment.
Just one quick comment.
Please.
I understand what you're saying is Friday would be Jeff's last day. I think it would be appropriate to have a motion tonight, maybe Mark as the interim as of Saturday. You can come back later and
Right.
talk about hours and details and terms. But there will be documents to be signed, there will be things to be done, and you don't want to wait 2 weeks. So you're in a general session, in an open meeting, in a regular time, so a motion, second, we'll do it.
Thank you. That's what I was going to do. I'm getting better at this every single time.
Do we need a motion?
So I will make the motion, if that's okay.
Okay,
And I'll make the motion that we appoint Mark Thompson as the interim city manager as of Saturday, January 13th, 2018.
Second.
Great. Roll call.
One moment, please.
Oh, sorry.
I'm writing the day.
The
13th.
The 13th,
Oh, yeah.
2018.
Okay, and you seconded, correct? All right, Commissioner Abraham.
Aye.
Do you want me to call it?
Yes, please call the roll.
Commissioner Holland.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye.
Now, can we
Please.
talk about the potential of moving forward with a search firm? We've all had their presentations for a couple of weeks. My understanding is that the HR department has fully vetted all 3 of them and recommended all 3 of them. Am I correct, Martin? So I would just put on the tables accepting the bid from, or the proposal from Strategic Government Resources.
I'll second that.
Strategic.
That was the young lady. Yep.
That's one of the night.
It was the third
Accept-
presentation
The
for
third
tonight.
presentation she did, yeah.
So,
Any thoughts,
need a
comments,
second.
or, didn't I do that?
the mayor did.
Yes, I did. I had notes on her, but I can't, they went somewhere else.
Yeah, I wrote all
You want my notes?
I don't have
She
any
would not be
discussion.
doing the search herself, she
No,
said,
it's
but
Doug
she.
Thomas, city manager from Lakeland, Florida.
But we get all their cell phone numbers. They did have a shorter guarantee, I noticed. Everybody else's was 2 years and theirs was 18 months.
Yeah. I also am curious, and maybe, Martin, you might know this because we talked about it a little bit, but I'm curious about the tools that they use. One of the things that we use internally is the predictive index.
They use DISC.
And they use DISC. So I think some of them have expressed that they would use another tool if we asked them to. I'm asking Martin from the Peanut Gallery. I know we're putting you on the spot, but.
I can get that information to you if you're in need of it. I don't know exactly what tools that they do use, but they are willing to work with us, whatever way we want to go, as far as I'm.
Martin, can you remind us of the bids of all 3, the cost?
I think the one that you eventually went with was 28,000.
The strategic is what, 28,000?
We haven't gone with it yet.
No, we
It's
haven't
just on the table.
voted yet. We haven't voted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
28,000?
I believe their extensive network was what really reached out to me, that they could probably fill it quicker.
Yeah,
Or,
that's
you
a
know,
great
they-
point.
They have more resources, is the way it came across in their presentation tonight and their printed presentation that we've had to review.
And I did like their emphasis on servant leadership and the social media. I like things about all 3, but I did like that.
Yep.
I'll admit I enjoyed not having the PowerPoint read to me. I'm capable of doing that. But
I didn't get your job.
yeah.
Okay, well,
So
go ahead.
your recommendation is like, we can just close our eyes and pick one, pretty much, right?
I'm going to wait and see, and,
He's not gonna
What
answer
a
that question,
political
is what he's
guy.
saying.
No, I mean, our HR department recommended all 3, right? Brought it to us, so.
Yeah, vetted, yeah.
Okay, I got you.
If we move tonight, do you think they can go ahead and move? I mean, we can engage them quicker?
2 weeks.
Because we do the
Within 2
contract
weeks?
and all that.
Go ahead and get their contract ready and get them started?
I
What was
can,
that,
I can check on that
SG?
information
Wasn't it
for you.
SGR.
Matter of fact, I can give her a call because she's not leaving out until the morning.
Yeah, they really were emphasis on that 24/7 part. We're supposed to be able to call them anytime. They said that.
She did.
That's why they're 28,000.
But the other bids weren't far from
One
that.
was 24.5,
They were all
Springstead.
The first group was 21.5, and the second one was 24.5.
Right.
I do believe the biggest difference was the network of contacts that the third one proposed that they had. Between their website, their jobs board, and their newsletter subscription, all of that, to me, gives them much quicker access.
I would agree.
Oh, yes, okay, so that's a great point that the city clerk is making. So, we can choose tonight who to move forward with and give direction to Martin, but this will have to be put in a formal contract, brought forward as an ordinance for us to work on. And I'm getting yeses from the attorneys in the room. Okay, so that means January 23rd is our first reading, and then the beginning of February is our second reading.
It has to have 2 readings. It can't be adopted on.
We could declare an emergency probably in this case and have just 1 reading. But Martin has probably dealt with this as much as I have, but once you give them the nod and you're saying unanimous, they're going to be able to work right there.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not going to
If
wait
they're
for our
not going to work
municipals.
right there, we're probably taking the wrong.
That's the point.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, let's call roll then if we don't have any other discussion. Please.
Ready?
Yep.
Commissioner Abraham?
Just to be clear
Yeah.
on the firm,
Strategic.
Gotcha. All right.
This was the third presentation.
The last one.
I'm with you. Okay.
The chess piece.
And that's a yes.
Aye, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Holland.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes. Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye. Sorry.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye. I'm going to adjourn this meeting until
I think
before
before we do
someone
that-
else. Oh,
I'm sorry. This is Jeff's last meeting with us.
Yeah.
So I think that
Thank
we
you.
need to say thank you for your
Yes,
service.
definitely.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
what
Thank you
you've
so
done
much,
for the
Jeff.
city. And we have appreciated you very much and look forward to continuing to be friends with you and wish you very well and thank you for all you've done.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank
be
you,
on
Sandra.
next Tuesday.
Yeah, but I better
do you
be
want a round
healthy
of
lunch.
applause?
You could have done that earlier.
I know, sorry.
I'm buying you a cell phone case as a present.
All right, I want to make a motion to adjourn this meeting, please.
We're not doing this, right? Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Motion adjourned. Motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned.
Ooh, boy, howdy.